last 2 years, and those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the Channel crossing as the dangerous bit, but actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many tens of kilometers have to be covered on foot by these migrants, and as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very, very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me the only thing that we ever get is maybe a few toothbrushes and some nappies for the babies. Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. New Year's will be over soon. I am such a killjoy, aren't I? I'm really sorry. I hope you're going to have a wonderful new year. I know exactly what I'll be doing, and it'll involve 2 small dogs and an angry cat and my bed, which I am thoroughly looking forward to, I can tell you. Right, coming up in the next 3 hours, we've got a lot to pack in, actually, at the end of this year. Kevin Schofield will be joining us. As you know, I've been picking a journalist a day to come in, or to at least to talk to us about their big stories of the year. And actually, Kevin has chosen my big story of the year, and he's the first one to have done that. So we are obviously connected. So Kevin Schofield will be talking us through his big stories of 2025 in a year that we know just the news didn't stop. It was like a roller coaster. I mean, it was just constant, wasn't it? So he's picked out his stories. We'll be doing that. Andy Lound will be joining us, my favourite spaceman, and he'll be talking to us about this factory that I was just talking to Peter about being sent up into space, and is this the future of manufacturing? Very interesting. Paul Beaver will be joining us as well, defence analyst and author, and he'll be talking through what's been happening this year in terms of the global wars and how unsettled it all is. And it's so much bigger than we think it is, because we tend to concentrate on just whether it's Israel, Gaza, or whether it's Ukraine, Russia. But there's so much more going on that could that would have impact on us in the coming years. We're also going to be talking to an old mate of mine. I'm absolutely thrilled I'm chatting to him today. Justin Urquhart Stewart will be joining us to talk about council houses to be built for asylum seekers. And that is what I want to talk to you about through the afternoon. Asylum seekers are to be housed in newly built council homes as part of a push to end these asylum hotels and private landlords and all these bills that we're getting. And we've learned, haven't we, that the bill has gone up threefold. It's gone up to 15 odd billion now, from about 4.5 billion per year in housing asylum seekers in hotels. A good deal of that money is going into the hands of private companies, those profits, those huge profits that these companies are making. For example, I didn't realise this until last year, earlier this year. God, I don't even know where I am. That they're charging, hotels would charge, let's just say £300 a night for a room. What these private companies are doing is they're paying the hotel £300 for the room and then charging us per person in that room. So if there are 3 people in that room, they'll be charging the taxpayer £900 per night, per room, whatever the cost is. So they stuff it full of people, but they're still only paying the hotels the nightly rate. So that was something that was a caller actually that phoned in, who worked in a hotel. He said that's what they're doing. So it was like, wow, I did not realise that. So isn't it the right thing to do to take that out of private hands? Give the money to the councils, let them build homes, and then put the asylum seekers in those homes. It means that we'll have housing stock for the future. Or, as I suspect, and I feel as well, that feels really unfair, because there are a lot of people waiting on council waiting lists for more than 10 years to get a property. Oh, and I also want to know if you think we should pause the right to buy, because we're losing so many houses in the right to buy schemes that actually maybe that should be paused for a decade while we catch up with the housing stock. So that's what I want to talk to you about. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you back. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222. So do get in touch with that. Have you been waiting a long time for council homes? Do you think it's fair that we put these people in these homes, even if it saves us money? I really want to hear your views on that through the afternoon. Now, though, it is time to go through the top stories of the day. That was a load of pens falling off the desk. Amy Fisher, it wasn't her fault, it was mine. Amy Fisher joins me now, former Director of Comms for the Conservative Party. Season's greetings.
Hello, nice to see you again.
I'm disappointed you're not covered in tinsel or sherry or something.
Sherry maybe a couple of days ago, but I had a lovely Christmas, which I hope you and your listeners did too. And then, yes, like yourself, I'm not sort of a big New Year's person, so I'll be delighted to be in bed by about 9:30 with a glass of champagne, and if I can be asleep by 10:30, I'll feel like I'm winning.
You're winning at life.
26,
yes, exactly. Start the new year properly with some sleep.
Yes. And also it's meant to be so cold tonight. I just don't fancy sort of trudging around.
No, and it's really interesting, even listening to some of the younger people out there saying, oh, I'm going home for a nap before I go out tonight.
Oh no, I love a nap though.
Oh, I love a nap.
Because that's the treat, isn't it? The naps, I mean, I appreciate, sort of when you get older, napping is sort of what you do to pass your day, but certainly like it's a treat when you should be sort of presumably doing some gainful work. No, to go down and have 40 winks, I love it.
It is, isn't it funny how the joy in your life changes?
Well, this is this card that I saw the other day that literally made me laugh out loud. It's Kath Tate one. It literally said, not leaving the house, going to bed early, once childhood punishments, now adult life goals. And I bought that and sent it to a number of friends because it just so entirely sums up the, yes, like a Saturday where I don't need to leave the house and I can just potter around and then go to bed early and maybe not really speak to anybody apart from the odd,
Anybody who knows
message.
me knows
It's a
that is
delight.
my joy. That is absolutely my joy. It is so fun. And people cancelling last minute.
Yes. Well, this is the
Never
news.
worry about cancelling me because I'm going like that.
Well, it's now JOMO. So instead of being FOMO, fear of missing out, apparently you get
The
to
joy
an
of
age
missing
where
out.
you have JOMO, which is like I am delighted now not to have to go to this social gathering. Brilliant, I can stay in my
It's
pyjamas.
the best thing. Then you get this, oh, I'm really sorry. Don't be sorry.
Yes, I am not. I'm
Never
not
be
worried
sorry.
by this at all.
In fact, I love you even more for cancelling. Let's have a look at the news because we can't cancel that, unfortunately. What do you think, quickly, of the council houses? A lot of councils are signing up to this now. Brighton and Hove, Hackney, Peterborough, Thanet, Powers. They've all confirmed they're keen to take part in the scheme. There's £100 million on offer, which doesn't sound like an awful lot, but it'll save us money. Is it not a good idea?
Well, I think the issue of sort of for whom council housing is being built or not built and who is using it is sort of bound up in a whole intractable wider issue of kind of immigration and what we're doing with that and the whole edifice around it and how we treat people and sort of what rights and services and access to services including housing they have when they get here. I have to say in your introduction the thing that struck me most was look, serious consideration or pause of right to buy, because look, whilst the scheme was phenomenally successful in the 80s and allow people to get on the housing ladder and all the rest of it, that was a scheme that was phenomenally successful 40 years ago.
Yeah.
The circumstances in which that scheme would seek to operate is just so fundamentally different that whilst I still sort of believe in the principle of right to buy and home ownership being one of the most important things you'll do in your life, probably after sort of having a child and that kind of thing can be so phenomenally important. I just don't think we're in a place where either literally financially or sort of politically and strategically we can afford to do that at the moment. So yes, what I was most taken by was a need for a hiatus. I'm not saying bin it entirely,
because we've got councils now who will do anything to make more money, right?
Yes.
My parking permit's gone up by 50 quid in the last year for no apparent reason whatsoever. So all the classics, they're pushing up the prices. So the one way that they make money is by selling housing stock and not replenishing it, right? This is what's happened throughout history. But just to put some numbers on that, 20,560 social homes were lost in 23-24, primarily through right to buy. And England will sell off more than 8 times as many council homes in 25-26 as were constructed in the previous year. So 8 times the number of council homes being sold than were built.
So it's complete depletion.
It's complete depletion.
And depletion is the right word of resources, because it's not even that they're slowly sort of filling the tank back up again. It's only ever being run down. And I have to admit that the part of it that I don't quite understand, actually I'm sort of sounding terribly naive as I'm about to say that, but the Labour had an absolutely sort of apparently cast iron manifesto commitment. I know exactly, yes, roll your eyes, because I know I was sort of assumed as cast iron manifesto commitment. I mean, of course they're going to break it. No, it's not. It's like sort of half stopped my that for that. But that was one of the really
1.5 million
meant
homes.
to be one of the major planks, like not just sort of buried away on page 20 or whatever. Not that I'm saying any manifesto commitment from any party should be disposable, but this kind of all of them was meant to be one of the ones you could really trust, and almost within sort of the first month of the Labour government coming in last year, they were already so many thousands of homes behind their target. Do you see what I mean? Like almost from the upshot.
It was 800 a day they would have to build in order
so
to
literally
reach their
every
target.
day they're sort of racking up this total that they were making no indent in. And as I say, yes, I stopped myself from sounding totally naive, but equally it was a key manifesto commitment. Every single election cycle, be it local election or general election, for every single political party, there is a recognition that housing and housing standards and then obviously home ownership it is in the sort of top 5 of things that people care about.
Of course it is. It's
Self-evidently, because it literally affects your literally where you live.
Yeah.
But the other thing else is dependent.
The other thing about their promise, which really annoyed me, or their pledge to build these houses, was that they used the word affordable, and that is such a bogus word, because affordable just means about 20% cheaper than market rate. The market is too high for most people, and I mean most people. There's absolutely no way, and while they're paying extortionate rents, they can't save for the deposits anyway. So the idea that Labour would come up with a policy that said affordable housing, when what they should be doing, and by the way, that isn't Labour building those houses, it's asking contractors, private companies, to build those houses and sell some of them at discount and some of them at inflated prices, so that they're not rebuilding council properties, which is the only truly affordable property.
And that circumstance that you've ascribed there of in no way attempting to correct or let alone bolster council housing stock. I mean, we're basically looking at a bit of a sort of plaster over a gunshot wound type effect here. They're sort of plugging one little bit over here.
But also it was disingenuous to say affordable.
In the hope of a kind of very short-term sort of win over here for actually quite a small minority of people, which, as I say, is only ever trying to plug a little bit here and there, whilst being disingenuous about the baseline level of the problem, which is the depletion of the council housing, sell-off of the council housing stock, and presenting it as anything other than that, as you say, is sort of
it's borderline lying.
It's for the birds, because it doesn't take that much looking into to go, well, hang on a second,
that's not affordable.
This is literally Peter robbing Paul.
Yeah. I mean, it's disgraceful, actually, that they can try to look us in the eye and go, no, we're going to build these affordable homes. First of all, they're not. And second of all, affordable to who? And that is always the question.
Affordable to who and where? And where? Because again, when they talk about the affordability, it's of no solution to anybody to sort of build a quote, affordable stock of housing somewhere that people don't want to live, or there isn't the other infrastructure or jobs or anything else. So it's not just
and that's what these private companies
are looking to do, because the land is cheaper. Obviously,
there you go. The land is cheaper, and so they put their affordable stock where people don't want it, and their unaffordable stock where people do want it, and that's where they make their profit. Yeah. It is such a lie.
And then in its circularity, just to finish that off, when the private companies are building this stock on the cheaper bits of land without necessarily the local planning infrastructure in place.
There's no roads,
and so roads, sewage systems, schools, basic water supplies, hospitals. I mean, you name it, any of the associated utilities or sort of human services around it then just don't exist, or there's a massive time lag in the local area plans of development.
But we know of places where there's no roads going to houses, and they're just sitting there empty. I mean, we are being so ripped off, and it seems with governmental permission. I just don't get why they think we're so stupid. That's what I don't get.
I've sort of long argued that in terms of Whitehall departments, there's obviously, DW, well, there's sort of health, and there's the Home Office, which is sort of known as being probably the most tricky, where sort of ministers, joke as sort of the graveyard of ministers' careers. But actually, I'd argue that sort of, local government, okay, not quite matters of life and death, as say we have in the Home Office or have with the NHS, but actually some of the issues there, and this is why we've had a merry-go-round of, ministers, and I will say certainly under, the coalition Conservative government, but we've had some big changes at the top actually already under this government. Now, whether that was directly related to housing and planning issues and other...
There was a couple of housing ministers
There were a couple of housing issues related to sort of personal conduct. But yes, as I say, it's one of the departments people tend to think is maybe sort of certainly second or even third tier, but actually if you're looking at an issue like housing, which so materially affects, as we've said, people's everyday, it's basic.
And that's what governments, and including the one that you worked for, they seem to always want to do this highfalutin, stuff that they can point to their grandchildren and go, I built that bridge, or I, made that happen. But housing, it's not sexy, but that is what they're paid to do.
And
that's what
government
has failed.
Promises to them, and then
and then
largely
failed. It is so basic. That's what government's right. That what you're there for is to house us, make sure that we're safe, so police us,
and
health,
kind of thing,
and defence of the realm. The rest of the bells and whistles that you love to play with, stop it. That's you're not there for that. You know, HS2, which now won't be ready until 2040.
I can't even remember the noughts on the end of that project, by the way, so I'm not going to try and, put a price tag.
How many houses would that have built? I mean,
Well, the other just last thing to say is also, even when you get these new houses, the fact of them actually having been constructed and stuff is not good enough, because some of the standards in them are so poor.
Because they just want to make profit.
Just because they're cheap or private companies, not naming any names, but they get sort of whacked up, and then within months there's damp, there's
walls falling down,
all of this kind
terrible.
of thing, and not built to sufficient standard.
It's absolutely shocking. So that's going to be the phone in through the next 3 hours. Please do give me a call. Do you think it's time to stop Right to Buy, or would that be the wrong thing to do? What is it like in your area to try and get on the council, even to get on the waiting list? And do you support the idea that even if this saves us money, that we shouldn't go ahead with this, or we should go ahead with it? What do you think with giving council homes to asylum seekers? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Quick break, and then Amy and I will be back to look at the rest of today's news.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good afternoon. This is Talk, and it's Petrie, and with me is Amy Fisher, former Director of Communications at the Tory party. Nigel Farage, we were just saying in the break there that this housing asylum seekers in council homes is a gift wrapped in a bow for Nigel Farage. He'll be thrilled with that idea. But he's given his New Year's address, or he's shared his New Year's address.
So I think this is a pretty clever article, actually. Firstly, just in terms of tone. Because the danger that politicians can sometimes fall into when writing for sort of any kind of newspaper is they sort of fall into this very formal language, and it sounds entirely divorced from what you'd actually say to a normal person in conversation. Now, whatever you think of the content of what he's saying is, Nigel Farage widely is recognised as being, a sort of engaging communicator who commands your attention, and his literal voice is so recognisable in this piece. There's just sort of a couple of phrases where he's talking about, here's a guy from Egypt, this Egyptian chap that Keir Starmer will welcome. And you can hear Farage saying, here's a guy, sort of
He's definitely written this.
This is what I mean. It's authentic.
Yeah,
this is
not authentic.
This is not a ghostwriter trying to come up with a cute turn of phrase that's going to get Farage a few nice headlines. This is Nigel Farage speaking to all the readers of the Mail, and how widely beyond that paper it's being picked up. There's another example where he's sort of criticising Labour and the Tories for something. He's saying, "Oh, come off it." Again, you can literally hear Farage there. So I just think in terms of how this has landed, in terms of tone, is pretty smart. In terms of the other content in here, he does do a bit of the sort of doom and gloom of people don't feel safe, we're being let down, but he very quickly switches into very positive. We should be proud of our history. It was a Royal Navy who stopped slavery. I'm going to make a speech in Greenwich. So then he sort of
is very smart.
It was very smart. And then talking about the sort of magnificent buildings, and then the interlock he then makes into there of actually, I worked in a city when it was booming. It can be booming again. We've got Bitcoin. So again, it's quite clever the way he's done the sort of link from the historical past to actually opportunities for the future that Rachel Reeves is messing up at the moment, but look, Britain has got stuff to capitalise on. And yet he does also sort of warn about AI, but then switches straight into, well, 1 in 7 Brits has some form of Bitcoin. I can tell you, I was a trader, this is the new cryptocurrency, is the new place to go. So it's not what you might have expected as a kind of, it's all grim, it's all broken, it's all 1917.
But he's very clever. He's always been very clever at reading the room.
Yes, and this I think
he knows that we're all incredibly fed up with 2025.
So he hits that, but he doesn't go so far down it as in it for it just to be a doom loop of an article. He's spinning enough around it of we've got things that we.
So I know how you feel, but you can feel better.
Yes, exactly.
With me.
So
yeah, he's always been very clever at that. Look what he did with Brexit.
I thought this was a pretty smart article. Farage has been doing extremely well in the polls for months now. The Conservatives have, in the last sort of 6 weeks or so, crept back a few points. They're sort of, if not quite nipping it at the heels, of posing a bit more of a direct challenge to reform. But no, I should imagine Nigel Farage and reform will be extremely pleased with how this article has landed, particularly, as I say, hitting those pinch points of communicating, I get why you're annoyed and down about things, but come on, look, I understand it, and by the way, I'm a guy that's leading a party that wants to do something about it.
It is very clear. A lot of the other parties could always have learned from Nigel Farage and Donald Trump. I mean, we love him or hate him. You can't argue.
You can't ignore them for a start. Which getting in the room and getting your voice heard is actually half the challenge for anybody in politics. So, as you say, irrespective of whether they make your blood boil, you can't ignore them. So they're already
won.
They're already there with foot in the door.
Absolutely, they're both very clever at hitting those points. The Queen went to see the family of John Hunt and his family after his wife Carol and those 2 daughters, Louise and Hannah, were killed by Bolt, wasn't it? Were killed by Louise's ex-partner. But it was what she said when she was there, wasn't it?
So she's
the important thing.
So it's been known that Queen Camilla has been a long time sort of supporter and patron of campaigns against domestic violence. This particular interview was noteworthy. It's the first time the Hunt family have spoken out about the awful things that happened to them. And then the Queen herself revealed that, not only is this a subject that she's very keen to campaign on, but actually when she was sort of 16 or 17, she herself was attacked on a train. So she has very personal experience of it. This interview that she did with the BBC was also very, very clear in the fact. I think we sometimes still tend to think of domestic violence as being, the punch to the face or the kick to the ribs, and actually there's far more to that. It's the coercive and controlling behaviour.
She's been fighting this for years.
She
really has, way before she became Queen. This is a big issue.
Way before she sort of spoke about it, and it was known this was one of her campaigning things. So we are at a stage where it's sort of about 3 women a week are dying in the UK. quite often partner or ex-partners. So I think, you know, this time of year, cases of domestic abuse tend to spike over Christmas and New Year. So at this particular time, this was an important interview, not least to hear of the Queen's personal experience and the sort of messages that sent about. She's quite clear, like, fight back. I fought back.
Yes.
I was scared, but it made me angry. And then some other issues that they touch on here about, it seems that the boyfriend who killed the members of John Hunt's family had online misogynistic radicalisation, as it's now being called. The sort of Andrew Tates of this world may have played at least some part in that. So again, some warnings around, you know, if we think of radicalisation online, we still probably tend to think of sort of, you know, Islamic, ISIS, you know, that kind of religious doctrine sort of seeping through. But no, the dangers from Andrew Tate and the like are not just ever present. I think probably growing. And whilst we have the Online Harms Act, the rate at which this grot about, you know, women being not even just second or third class citizens and to be treated at the hands of, as I say, Andrew Tate, I think that's going to be a big challenge for the next year if the government is serious about wanting to beef up what is now the Online Harms Act.
Absolutely right. Let's fast forward now to top baby names of 25. Petrie isn't on there.
I'm so distraught. Neither is Amy in the top 10, and Amy's usually
I'm not even on the list.
An absolute kind of an absolute mainstay. But we've got some quite classic ones that are coming back for sort of boys. You know, Jason, Samuel, which is kind of 80s, right? Daniel, Nathan. They're all having a resurgence.
The top two, I was interested in the boys. Muhammad is always is number one, but Noah is number two.
And then there's what, Leo, Theo, and something else. It was quite sort of Leo, Theo, and Luca.
Yeah,
Luca's
I've never, obviously, when I was a kid, everybody, there were 5 of us, 5 kids, and everybody had their name on their door, like Andrew's room, Claire's room. I just had my room, because they couldn't find one with Petrie on it.
Well, I was going to say that's more an interesting delve into your psyche there. I wasn't thinking so much about the availability of the name. It was more that's my room.
My room. But still, and they all had their mugs with their names on, and I didn't either. So it's really hurt me through the years. But yeah, we always see the top baby names, and Ophelia, because of Taylor Swift, apparently.
But the problem is, you do have to be careful if you're naming a child, because I think Ophelia is a very difficult name for a toddler. Well, for a toddler to carry off. Like, if you're the toddler called Ophelia and somebody hears your mother shouting, Ophelia, Ophelia, come here across the pot, I mean, you're going to make certain judgments about that child.
You are. Yeah, and probably the right judgments.
But this is what I mean. Like, there's a responsibility that goes with, you know, ascribing babies names that goes beyond just the fact it may be your favourite, you know, character from a literary classic.
Well, a couple of influencers have named their child Ziggy. I quite like that.
I don't mind that, but there was a sort of famous
Bird.
episode of Friends where Ross and Rachel are arguing about what baby's name they wanted. Do you remember this? And so Rachel kind of wants, you know, Rain, and Ross is just like, no, because I don't want my baby to like own a kiln and weave her own skirts. And then kind of Ross wants like Darwin and Thatcher, and kind of Rachel's like, I don't want my child to be bullied. And so, as I say,
it is a big responsibility.
It is a big responsibility.
And I failed in mine so badly that my son will not use his name. He's gone with his second name.
My sister did that, actually.
He doesn't like it. He said it sounds too posh. Okay. Amy Fisher, thank you very much indeed. Your name's quite posh.
It's not. It's a very. But it's usually it's been a standard since the 80s.
It has, actually. It has. Yeah. I often wish I'd been called Gertrude. I
was about to say, Petrie, telling me my name is posh is a bit like, hello, kettle. I think the pot is calling you black from over here.
Gertrude Hosken. Thank you very much indeed, Amy Fisher, former Director of Comms for the Conservative Party. Have a happy, sleepy New Year.
Thank you.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good afternoon to you. This is Talk and it is Petrie here with you through until 4 o'clock. Council houses are to be built for asylum seekers. We kind of knew this was coming, didn't we? Asylum seekers are to be housed in newly built council homes as part of a push to end the use of asylum hotels and private landlords. Around 200 local authorities have shown interest in the government pilot scheme that would fund the building of new properties or the refurbishment of derelict housing to make room for asylum seekers. 5 councils so far, Brighton and Hove, Hackney, Peterborough, Thanet and Powers, have confirmed that they're keen to take part in the scheme. Now, the reason that this scheme is being proposed is because allegedly it will save us a lot of money. And that money, instead of going into the hands of these private companies and into their profit margins and their new yachts, will go instead to housing that will be able to be used for many, many years to come. That is the theory. So the question I'm asking you is, does that make it better for you? Or do you just think that this is grossly unfair, that council homes should be being built, first of all, for British people who've been waiting on waiting lists for sometimes over a decade? We are losing council homes to the right to buy scheme and the fact that councils are just not keeping up with repairs on other buildings at an enormous rate. In 2025, we are likely to lose 8 times more housing than has been built in the last year, council homes. 8 times that in the right to buy scheme. So do you also believe that the right to buy scheme should be paused while we catch up with the housing stock depletion? With me to discuss this further, I'm thrilled and delighted to say, is Justin Urquhart-Stewart, who's an economist. Justin Urquhart-Stewart, season's greetings, my lovely friend. How are you?
I'm very well, Petrie. I'm sorry, is it Gertrude now? I get confused.
I would prefer Gertie, if you don't mind.
Okay, Gertie, fine. Okay.
Dirty Gertie from number 30.
That's the wrong impression.
Who's the cat, before we go on?
Right. No, this is Boo.
This is still Boo?
It's Boo, yes, Boo's still here.
Hello, Boo.
She'll get fed up in a second and she'll leap off me, leaving bloodstains on my shirt. So,
How old is Boo now?
Oh, God, it must be 8 or 9.
Yeah.
I won't say that, but anyway, older than me.
Still looking good, both of you, both of you. Justin, there's going to be a lot of people who, despite the fact this could save us money and be a better long-term plan, will not want this. They will not like this.
I mean, it sounds an incredibly stupid thing to come out with, because people have been waiting for council houses for, as you said, sometimes over a decade. And suddenly say, yes, we're going to have council houses, which we haven't been able to produce enough of over years. But miraculously now, actually, for asylum seekers, yes, they can have those. No. Well, how about this as an alternative? We had the defence proposals coming out and some details there. And we know full well that one of the things we haven't been building there or keeping up to date are all the defence barracks. We know that the army barracks have been in a terrible condition for a long time. They need to be rebuilt. So fine, rebuild them. Here's the time. And they can be used, not get confused with council housing, and use that. And it does not have to be perfect buildings. It can be barracks, which will be there, and then actually then improved for soldiers to go into in due course. Because obviously the whole idea would be that you wouldn't actually have this as a permanent issue, because the whole point of actually what's happening at the moment with the immigrants is it should actually be a peak that is now being actually managed down, or there's no obvious sign of that actually occurring at the moment. Then also, as you mentioned, the right to buy. Right to buy is an incredibly stupid thing to do, because what it ends up doing is depleting the amount of stock that often the properties are purchased and then rented out privately, and also the local authority doesn't get the money anyway, so it hasn't got the money to reinvest in anything else. So it's a fairly illogical scheme. So at the very least, suspend that for a few years, build up the council house stock again, and make sure it's of the right quality and calibre this time, time. But keep that away from the asylum seekers, because that's a different issue. And you're insulting people by saying, actually, you've been in a queue for 10 years, for hard luck, if you just come here with a rubber dinghy, we'll give you a council house. That's a really stupid policy to have.
I know they're trying to sort of manage this policy, but I was saying to my last guest there, Justin, they might as well wrap it in a red bow and hand it to Reform, right? Because this is the kind of policy that, although might make sense economically, it doesn't make sense in any other way. I mean, I used to ask the question, being deliberately minxy, is if we paid people to stay out of jail, you know, if we paid them 40 grand not to commit a crime, that would save us 50 grand in a prison space. But of course, a lot of people, but I mean, that's what we're looking at here, isn't it? It's the same economics.
Yes, and what's the message that's going to go back to someone who wants to come to this country? Not only can you come here and get a job and actually get welfare payments and support, but by the way, you'll get a council house as well.
That you can stay in forever.
Forever, that's it, and don't worry, the other people who wanted it will actually be behind you in the queue. That's just dumb. But put it together with something whereby you can actually, if you're going to put them up somewhere, the barracks are perfectly right. They don't have to be, you know, superb places. You don't want to have superb places for people to stay in. After all, these people here are on an emergency scheme, and the whole idea is actually to make sure that they don't want to be there for any great length of time, and so actually put people off to say, look, I'm afraid you're not going to be staying anything great. It's going to be a set of barracks, and it's going to be one of the disincentives to be there. That does not mean you have to put up a bunch of tents or have nightingale camps or something like that, but you can actually then produce long-term issues for barracks, which we know need to be replaced anyway. So we've got the land where the barracks are, we know whether that can be done, so improve that now. And as the army's shrunk so much anyway, our forces have, we need to actually try and grow them. But in the meantime, actually, we can actually solve or at least manage some of this issue. But for heaven's sake, don't insult people waiting for council houses by just saying, hard luck, your place has been taken by someone else who's turned up in a rubber dinghy.
I mean, the other part of this scheme as well is that what they want to do is with privately built new estates and things like that, where the aspirational people have, you know, saved all their money, got the deposit together to buy their starter homes, is to give the councils the money to buy the stock in those areas that has not yet sold. So they won't be paying cheaply for those properties either, but then they can house asylum seekers in those homes, and not wishing to be NIMBY about that, but if you've, you know, struggled and worked hard to buy your property, the last thing you want is going to be a bunch of people who may not be there for very long, or maybe moving around, or, you know, and it may affect your housing value.
The area you're living in, your society, is actually very important, and the quality of that society. And if you're actually going to be degrading it by mixing up different people, that's not to say they're necessarily nasty people, but you want people who have something in common with each other, who actually then will get on with each other. If you're actually putting people together who have nothing in common, you'll create more aggravation and difficulty, and you'll end up actually with the quality of the property being degraded. People won't want to be there, and that's how you end up with slum dwellings. So actually keep these two things separate as far as you possibly can. Let people have their council houses according to their rights and their time of actually being able to have it. Put that forward. Allow councils to keep the money from any sales that they've got so they can actually do the rebuilding. But I mean, other side of that, I would actually constrict the right to buy for the time being, because all it's doing is stripping out, as you were coming out with the figures a few minutes ago, the overall supply. The supply would just be getting smaller and smaller. How are you going to actually build more if at the other end, if someone's actually taken the plug out and the numbers are falling away down the drain? So stop the sales at the moment, encourage the building, and also provide tax incentives for people to actually be buying in terms of capital gains and things like that. Doesn't cost the government anything at all, but it gives people incentives to go towards it, to hold it for the longer term, and then also, of course, actually across generations as well, which is one of the great things. People are saying, how my children are never going to be able to buy a house. You're right, on their own they can't. As a family, they've got more chance of doing so. But if the tax system actually assisted that, that would actually then make that easier and more beneficial, so that the value is passed on to the next generation and there's a greater security of tenure for that family.
When we look, though, at building companies, because your speciality is the stock markets, and you see these building companies and they seem to they know how to make a profit, right? I mean, they absolutely know how to make a profit. They sit on, they land bank, they sit on it, they save it until the value goes up. How are housing stocks responding to this idea at the moment? I can only imagine that they're liking it very much, extra hundreds of millions of pounds in housing.
Any more money going into that, they'll absolutely love. Of course they will. And of course, all housing developments have to have a proportion of, as you said, affordable housing. Please define.
Yeah.
Also, not just affordable as in quality of housing. You just put your fist through the cardboard walls and actually make sure there is the right calibre and quality there. And again, that's also you've got to be careful, because if you put affordable housing smack next to actually wealthier housing, again, you don't get the right social mix there either. So it sounds good on paper, but actually then do you attract the right sort of people to be living there? So again, look at the calibre and quality, and this is the problem that's been with a lot of the houses in the past, and people go back and say after 5 or 10 years, actually these are just poor quality, shoddy buildings that have been put up, and no one's actually been around to actually check that the right quality is being used. And even if it hasn't, no one's gone back to the property companies and said, well, actually, you're going to actually have to pay for this, or we're going to fine you for doing so. I've never seen that actually being dealt with at all over the past few years. So
when we look at the future of housing in this country, are we being barefaced lied to? I mean, there's this whole idea that we're going to build 1.5 million affordable homes, just 20% or so under market value, which is, like you said, define affordable to who. Can we ever go back to the days where we were home builders, we were house builders? You know, after the Second World War, the prefab places, which are still standing and still doing a pretty good job, they were built in their millions, right? We were able to do it once. Why can't we do it now?
It is funny when you see those prefabs, and everyone knocked them at the time and so weren't they awful? Actually, I've been into some of them. Okay, they're pretty small and they are prefabs, but actually they're not as bad as people actually thought. I've come across far worse modern buildings which have just been very shoddily put together. No, going back to 1.5 million and then being able to build that quickly, it's very, very difficult. What's the biggest issue? Planning. Because nobody wants to have a new town smack next to me, because apart from that's farming land. Mind you, look at the farming land, you'll suddenly find they've got solar panels all over it. Can't see a plant anywhere. So that's very difficult. Of course, it's not just planning of the buildings, it's the infrastructure, making sure you've got the right water and sewerage supplies, rely on your water companies to do that. Yes, some chance, along with medical facilities and all those elements. It's the whole infrastructure that's so important for that. So it's not just a matter of just building houses. Coming up with a number like that is totally fatuous. You need to have a proper planning proposals for each region, and it has to be integrated into the plan, and to be able to make sure that it's credible. Now you can then try and finance that, and you will get investment finance into it, because it'll be seen as a logical plan put together, as opposed to just leaving it to a property company who are going to put up the prices whatever they can, so they can get their margins in it. The higher quality properties will have higher margins, and they squeeze the ones at the lower level. It's the wrong way of going about it. Coordinate the overall planning of towns, and so that you can actually create better communities. And as for the immigrants coming in, yes, of course, they've got to put them somewhere. So use the defence barracks that are going to be built. They can be built relatively quickly because they're simpler issues, and of course they're not long-term buildings. But that's the whole point of it. You don't want to encourage people here to say, we've guaranteed you a long-term housing supply. It's going to be pretty awkward or difficult for you for the first few years till it gets sorted out, if that is you're allowed to stay. But otherwise, with a scheme like this, you're merely just going to advertise, come and have a free council house in Britain. Yeah. That's not a good message. That's a great message for reform to actually go and argue about.
Absolutely right. Justin Imbu, thank you very much indeed. Very good to see you, Justin. Have a happy new year, and hopefully I'll see you very soon. Justin Urquhart-Stewart there, economist. So, what do you think? Do you think that we're being lied to about housing? What do you think about the right to buy? Do you think that should be suspended at least for a while we catch up? And do you think it's unfair to house asylum seekers in brand new council properties? 0344 499 1000.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and this is Petrie here at Talk, and I want you to do that. I want you to talk to me, so do give me a call. We're talking about this scheme to build council houses to house asylum seekers, to get them out of the hotels that they're in at the moment. And we, a lot of people want them out of the hotels. We talk about it a lot. How can we afford it? It's costing 15 billion plus a year now. A lot of that going into profits and for private companies and their brand new yachts, and they're making millions off us, right? This is taxpayer money. They are making millions and millions, billions off us. So is it better to put that money into building housing, council housing? So give councils money to build houses and then put asylum seekers into those houses. And I really do, that you would still see that as being unfair. And there is a sense, even if economically it makes sense. Although Susan, a really good message here. Hi Gertrude. Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that. Why are you talking about a housing solution for immigrants when the solution is no more immigration and to deport quickly the ones that are liars, chancers, spongers and criminals? And that actually gets to the nub of it, doesn't it? What Susan said there, that gets to the heart of it, is hang on a minute, are you telling us now this is a permanent situation that we have to put up with, that we have to tolerate? Seems like it is, isn't it? I mean, that seems like that's what they're telling us. Joe sent me a voice note, which, by the way, you can as well by using the same number, 03444991000, if you want to leave a voice note rather than talking to me. That's rude. No, it's not fine. I don't mind. Voice note from Joe from Wigan on this topic.
Hi, Petrie. Why do they have to have homes? Why not do what they do in Germany? Get old shipping containers, convert them into bedrooms, stack them on top just too high, and build toilet blocks. These are homes that they'll never get out of because they'll just be rubber stamped and sent straight through, and the government will go, oh yes, we've shortened the list for asylum seekers, the wait times, and it's not, they're just waving them through. Love your show. Bye. Thank
you, Joe. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be another draw, isn't it, for migrants who are thinking, right, we'll come into the country without the right paperwork, without anything. It will be a big draw. Oh look, I mean, you can hear the traffickers now saying, look, you can get a house. You'll be given a house if you go to Britain, because this is all that traffickers do. They just sell the dream to these people, and they buy it, and it looks like it might come true. I mean, surely not. But also, should we be banning the right to buy, just for now? And I just got this message here from me. It says, Petrie, they banned the right to buy in Scotland over 20 years ago to keep what was left of their housing stock. So we should do, I mean, we can't keep doing this, although I do appreciate people wanting the right to buy. We just can't keep doing it. We can't keep getting rid of housing stock when we need it so desperately. And also, the lack of council housing is pushing up the rents in private housing. So it's just not fair for anybody. David called from Uxbridge. David, good afternoon.
Hello. Well, there are loads of things I would talk about around this issue, but the central issue for me is, from my point of view, living in a tent inside a 6x6 cabin in minus temperatures. It seems to me that the the country is hell-bent on dissipating the resources, whatever they be, cash, land, housing, money, everything, on non-citizens. Now, I don't want anybody to help me out. I'll sort myself out. I've built this cabin, and I'm going to leave the UK soon, and I'll be fine. But I possess skills which are kind of survival skills, which are off the scale. I mean, when I think about myself, they're really off the scale. And there are people out there who don't have these skills, and they're freezing to death in doorways of shops and all sorts. People are going to start dying en masse, and they just don't care. They care about the migrants, they care about the immigrants, they care about the non-citizens, but they don't care about the British citizens.
Well, you know
I
why?
have 2 daughters, they're Filipino, and I'm cool with that. They pay their way, they work, they have their taxes, and so on, you know. So it's not a question of, like, you know, NIMBYism or like, I don't like immigrants or whatever. I'm the whitest guy in my entire family.
But the thing is that I mean, I think I can answer it in terms of legality, because we are legally and internationally legally required to help asylum seekers, right? That it is just a legal requirement. But there is no legal requirement for the government to house British people. There is no legal requirement for that, right? Which is why they can say, well, we're going to build houses, but then they don't. We're going to do this, but then they don't. So I think it's honestly, I think it's as simple and as barefaced as that. That there is a legal requirement for us to do this for asylum seekers, but there is no legal requirement to help people on the streets of cities across the country.
Well, that may be the case, but these are legal requirements that they've signed up for, and they don't have the consent of the British people to sign up to this sort of stuff. And there should be no legal requirement to look after everybody else, because there are billions of people out there in the world who want to come into our country that we created for ourselves. If they want to make something of their place, if they actually have to stay there, they'll have to do something with it. But they've made the basket case out of their own countries.
Well, yeah, I mean, I always turn to Afghanistan when we have this kind of conversation, because I think what the West did with Afghanistan was shameful. I think we were shameful to leave it to the hands of the Taliban and to their disgusting form of Islam, and I can't help but think that if people want to escape that hellhole, that is not their fault. That is the fault of the Taliban.
Somebody has to die, right? I have to die, and all these other people lying in the shop doorways and stuff, they have to die, or the people from Afghanistan have to die. The resources are not there. The resources are not there to handle these problems.
But
so
all I was saying there was that it is not. In that case, it's not that they can rebuild Afghanistan, right? We ravished that place with years and years of war, and then just abandoned it to the Taliban. You know, that we do bear some responsibility for that, and those people can't do anything. You know, the Taliban rules supreme, and women are, you know, it's disgusting what we did. It's disgusting. Anyway, so all I'm saying is that in some cases it is not just that they could rebuild the country that they're from. But I do take your point, and I think that you speak for a lot of people. That look, we have limited resources. There's, you know, the priorities may have to be given. But all I'm saying as well, I'm just giving you that it is a legal requirement for us to do what we have to do for asylum seekers and refugees. I have never seen any legal requirement for the government to house somebody who's on the streets. So that's all I'm trying to say there. But thank you for your call, David. Keep warm. It is absolutely brassic out there. Blimey. Right, it's coming up to the news, so I'll be back in just a moment, and we'll be talking then to Paul Beaver. Brilliant guy. You want to listen.
Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the channel crossing as the dangerous bit, but actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many tens of kilometers have to be covered on foot by these migrants, and as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a very good afternoon to you. This is Talk and this is Petrie here with you until 4 o'clock. And there is a lot still to get through in the next couple of hours. We're going to be looking at some of the movies you should be watching next year and some of the best ones. Oh, and also sending a factory, I'm not even making this up, a factory into space. So we'll be talking about that as well, and chatting to Kevin Schofield about his picks of the year, the stories. So there's this relentless news cycle that we've had in the last year. He's going to choose a handful of stories that stand out to him the most. We are talking, though, this afternoon about housing in this country and a plan for councils to be given money to build housing for council housing for asylum seekers. And I'm asking you whether you think, even if that does save us money in the long run and bumps up the housing stock, whether you think that that is the right thing to be doing or not, or whether you think that it's just simply not fair. I mean, even if it does save money, it's just not fair. But many of you think that the hotel scheme is wrong, so where do you put them anyway? So we'll be talking about that. I want your calls on that. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And you can text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Now, though, it is time to turn our attention to what's been going on in the world in the last year, not just hitting the news cycle. And in fact, in many cases, some of the things that we're about to talk about really have barely made the news at all. However, they do have an impact on our everyday lives and certainly will do going into the future of 2026. We're talking about some of the worst things that have happened in the last year, and that is the wars of 2025. Now, there's barely been a moment in history where there haven't been wars going on this planet, because men are the stupidest, or man is the stupidest of all creatures that have ever existed, and we just can't find a way of settling things without killing each other, which seems to be ridiculous. But here to discuss this with me is somebody who knows an awful lot on this topic, and that is Paul Beaver, defence analyst and author. Season's greetings to you, Paul.
And Happy New Year to you, Petrie.
Happy New Year. We can't seem to leave war alone, can we? Honestly, it should be beyond. It shouldn't be beyond the wit of man to figure out another way by now, surely.
Well, as long as we've got politics and we've got greed and we've got too many people on a planet with limited natural resources, we're, I'm afraid, going to have war. I can't see any way of stopping it. And if you look at the world situation today, now, as we sit here and chat, there are wars going on in Africa and Asia, in Europe, of course, with Ukraine. And we've got bellicose, I suppose, threats coming from dictators in China, North Korea, Iran, Russia, and the United States, because we're seeing an increasing dictatorial effort coming out of Washington with things like, oh, I must have Greenland, and then fabricating history to somehow prove Americans discovered Greenland, some 1,000 years before America existed. It's a very strange world we live in.
It really is, and I'm still shocked when America is put on that list that you've just come up with. You know, we've spoken a lot about this over the last year, and just saying, when are we actually going to admit that America is not actually the friend that it was?
Well, I think America's doing what America wants to do. Has a perfect right to do that. It's resetting the international situation. For the last 80 years, following the Second World War, there was a sort of Western-dominated Anglo-American, French-German approach to world affairs. And China and America both have decided they want to reinvent a world order. China, which doesn't believe in democracy and believes in hoovering up everybody else's resources if they're not brave enough to stop them. And America is tilting to Asia Pacific. It sees both the opportunities there and it sees the threats there. So it's quite happy to leave Europe to its own devices. And, you know, after 80 years, we should be capable of looking after ourselves. And the American view is we've just spent too much on social programs and social welfare, looking after asylum seekers, making sure that everybody is well, trying to make sure everyone is warm and cozy in the winter, which of course we're not really succeeding in doing too well either. So America wants a new world order. It wants to be top dog. It's probably prepared to share that with China in some way.
And Russia.
And increasingly with Russia.
Yeah. I mean, it's 1984, if you remember the book, right? So America has the Americas, including Canada, and Russia has Europe, and China has the South Pacific. That's it, isn't it?
It is. I mean, you can draw some lines. I would add Russia to that. Russia wants the Arctic.
Yeah, that's right.
So you've got the sort of Eastern Asia is Chinese, the center strand is Russia, and including Europe in that. And the United States wants the Western Hemisphere, a sort of revamped Monroe Doctrine, which was something that came out, 200 years ago, 150 years ago, saying, you know, that the Western Hemisphere will look after itself, and the new world will look after itself, and the old world needs to butt out. Well, President Trump is doing that with Venezuela, for example,
absolutely,
Canada, and with Greenland.
Yeah, it is the Monroe Doctrine, absolutely. Paul, something we'll go through individually some of the crises around the world, but I just wanted to draw your attention to this that I saw earlier on today, and this is Putin's doomsday radio plays Swan Lake. Now, the reason Swan Lake is significant is that it has been played before, famously played in the past, where something bad is about to happen or regime change. It was a potent symbol for the collapse of the Soviet Union after state TV repeatedly aired the ballet on loop in 1991. This was the coup attempt against Gorbachev.
Yes, it was. I can remember that. I was in Moscow at the time. I can remember everybody being very depressed. Swan Lake is amazing. I've seen Swan Lake at the Bolshoi in Moscow a couple of years after that. It is an amazing opera, but it has deep overtones for the Russian people, and it is seen as being a doomsday solution, a bad news story, if you like, and something that the Russians take very much to heart. Now, this rather strange radio station, which has sprung up, it has several different names. It also has an underlying buzz, which people wonder, is it passing messages? Is it some way of mass communication, or is it some way of brainwashing people? I actually haven't heard it, so I can't tell you what it sounds like.
People are saying that it sounds like code of some sort is being disseminated as well, but also there are voices underneath the music. Now, people don't know whether this is a hoax or not, but it's known as Russia's doomsday radio, or the buzzer. Suddenly started playing music from Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake, which is very unnerving, even if it is a hoax, right?
It is. I mean, Russia uses symbolism a lot.
Yes.
Music in particular is important, and particularly those key Russian artists like Tchaikovsky, whose work is revered around the world. I mean, we all love listening to Tchaikovsky, the 1812 Swan Lake music, all of that stuff. And the Russians are very cultured in that regard. I wonder what it means, if it means anything. It is the end of the year, although technically not in Russia, because they do have a different calendar to us. That might be something to do with it. They use the Julian calendar, we use the Gregorian calendar. So today's the 31st of January and the last day of the year. For many people, the last day of the year is in 7 days' time. For others, it's as late as the 4th of April. It just depends on your calendar.
Yeah.
The whole calendar thing is worth a program in itself.
Well, I'm glad that for us 25 ends 31st of December. I'm 30th of December. I'm happy with that. Yeah, I'm
I am
really
too.
happy with that. I want it gone.
If only, Petrie, that next year places like Sudan, Gaza, all of these places actually get some peace. But we could also say Thailand and Cambodia, the Democratic Republic of Congo. There are so many places in the world where there are hotbeds of war and conflict. And I don't see that stopping just because it's a new year tomorrow.
No, tragically, I agree with you. Let's have a look at the one that Donald Trump wants stopped the most, and then we'll talk about the one that he thinks he's stopped, but clearly hasn't stopped in the Middle East. So let's look at Russia-Ukraine and this peace deal. This to me, the last 5%, it seems insurmountable. That they are never going to agree. Putin wants the whole of the Donetsk region, the Donbass, because it's an industrial heart, and Zelensky's saying he can't give it.
Zelensky cannot give any land that's occupied by Russia as a result of aggression, whether that's Crimea or the Donbass.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is very simple, that nobody wants to reward an aggressor. And since 2014, Russia has been operating aggressively against Ukraine, and in that since 4 years in next February, of course, it would have been operating in a full-scale land war against Ukraine. So Zelensky cannot give up any land whatsoever, and neither should us Europeans actually want him to do so. We do not want a Russian border with Romania, with Poland, with countries that abut the civilized part of Europe. So I think there's no doubt Europeans have got to step up. We do a lot of rhetoric about it. There are lots of great speeches made. Actually got to do something really concrete and demonstrate to the United States that it doesn't have the right to give away land or suggest land is given.
It's not just the land, is it, Paul? People always forget this, and Zelensky's pointed out this is also 300,000 people who don't want to be part of Russia. He cannot give up 300,000 people that want to be in Ukraine. I mean, that's... And Trump, they all forget this. They all talk about the money they can make, or the land, or the industrial complexes, or the minerals, or the nuclear power plant. But they don't talk about the human beings that are in that region at the moment that don't want to be there.
Richard, you've hit the nail on the head. It's transactional for Donald Trump. We've talked about this. I mean, we must have used this term transactional every time you and I have spoken about Donald Trump. He sees everything as a deal. He sees it all as, where is the profit for America from this? He believes he was elected to make America great again and to take the profit, whether it's rare earths in Ukraine or it's the minerals of Canada and Greenland. He feels that America has some right to it. I mean, he's behaving like the worst imperial powers of the medieval period.
Yeah, but it's the people, it's always the people that people forget, and that is, and I'm so glad that Zelensky did point that out, because hopefully that will resonate at some point. Let's move on to the Middle East at the moment and the so-called peace that is happening between Israel and Gaza, and yet at the same time the West Bank. I cannot believe that people aren't talking about this more. How Israel is just stealing parts of land, huge parcels of land, in a so-called peace. I mean, are they hoping we're distracted?
Well, I think they're hoping we're distracted. Israel, its current government, this is not necessarily the Israeli people, the current government wants to stop the whole idea of a two-state solution. And it thinks that by annexing great swathes of the West Bank, it can do that. It's got Donald Trump on side. He's called for the de-arming of Hamas, which hasn't happened. I mean, the Israelis keep finding huge areas. I mean, Hamas spent a fortune making tunnels underneath Gaza, and the Israelis continue to find more and more of them. It's a very muddled situation. It spreads into Lebanon. It spreads into Syria, where there's been horrendous attacks on religious minorities which are not Islamic. So, for example, Christianity, any of the older religions of the Middle East, of which there are a dozen or more which are significant, have all been put under pressure by various Islamist groups and Islamist governments.
Well, you look at the mess in Yemen as well.
And then you've got, if you stretch right across, you've got Iran. You've got 3 or 4 nights now of protests. That, I'm afraid, won't bring about the end of the despotic mullah regime there, and it'll just mean a few more thousand people in Iran will die. I mean, the whole of this is really quite horrendous.
And yet Donald Trump insists on seeing it through rose-coloured glasses. He said only the other day, "Oh, we're going to move on to phase 2 of the peace deal." I mean, phase 1 it's not a peace that anybody recognises as a peace, but because he says it's peace, it's peace. Oh, we're going to move on to stage 2, and yet I'm so. Looking at what's happening at the West Bank, I can't. He said, "Oh, I don't really like it," but Netanyahu got a tick in the box to continue doing it when he was visiting Trump just a couple of days ago.
I mean, you have to remember, underlying all of this is Donald Trump wants the Nobel Peace Prize nomination, and therefore, if he keeps saying the word peace, then peace will happen, as it were. This is very simplistic politics and very simplistic statecraft. You don't send people to negotiate with President Zelensky who are not diplomats, who don't know the skills of this. And the other thing is, you have a head of state arrives in America and he has no official formal welcome. I mean, that is unheard of in the modern age. Yeah. You just don't do these things.
Such
It's
a lack
very
of respect, isn't there?
juvenile.
Yeah, it really
Yeah,
is.
it's very juvenile.
Yeah, and yet Netanyahu, cosplays Donald Trump, right? He wears the red red tie and the same little outfit. He looks like a mini me, and gets whatever he wants. It seems he always leaves the White House with his pockets full of joy. And yet you have other world leaders who leave with nothing. Paul, I've got to take a quick break, but we'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good afternoon to you. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until 4 o'clock. And then you've got Duncan Barks. He's taking you through the Drive Time show. So Duncan Barks will be here at 4 o'clock. Do you know how many years it's been since I've announced that Duncan Barks is going to be on the same station as me? It's been a very long time. Mind you, we have shared two, I think. We were LBC and BBC. Anyway, he's going to be here for your Drive Time show. But at the moment, we're talking about what's been going on around the world in terms of wars. Paul Beaver, defence analyst and author, joins us to continue discussing this. So the Middle East, if you were to have a crystal ball, I mean, we've always looked at the Middle East, right, and seen that it has been fractious, right? There's an awful lot of oil, there's an awful lot of resource, and there's an awful lot of people vying for that. That's pretty much been a lot of it. But also the sort of cutting people off in the West, like we have done with Iran and North Korea, really does create enemies for the future. What do you see happening in the Middle East regarding the West? Are we ever going to see eye to eye?
I think the Gaza situation has created 3 generations of potential Islamic terrorists. I think there's no doubt about that. The situation which is unstable in Syria, Lebanon also, the West tries very hard to have an impartial stance on the Middle East, but to many in the Middle East, if we have an impartial stance, it means we must be favouring the enemy. I think we've got, there's a lot that's going to happen. We need to watch Saudi Arabia. It's the now becoming the dominant regional power. access to Pakistan's nuclear arsenal, for example. It's got lots of money. It's got very clear leadership. It's doing a lot of good work, and it's doing a lot of work that doesn't necessarily follow our Western values. But then to them, that's not the point.
Yeah.
So we have to, to look at that. What we need is Europe, of course, to take a stance on the Middle East, which is one voice. But that's very difficult to get when you've got Hungary and Slovakia, for example, which seem to support the Kremlin. Kremlin will take a different view to Europe. Donald Trump doesn't want Europe to have a voice because he likes dealing with individual countries. It's a very complex situation. I would not like to be a diplomat at the moment.
No, but it is time for Europe to put our big boy pants on, isn't it? And grow up.
We have to grow up. We have to realise that we cannot have the cushy lifestyles that we've had. We have to invest more in defence.
Yeah, it really is.
If we want to maintain the cushy lifestyles in the future.
Yeah, if we want to have any sort of lifestyle in the future. Yeah. Let's turn our attention to Iran for a moment. We know there are protests going on at the moment over cost of living. Their own currency is collapsing. And 4 universities getting involved in Tehran. Of course, we know what happens to protesters in that particular country. Many will die and many will disappear. But there's also the thorny issue, isn't there, of them declaring really they are at war with us already.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? That Iran's view of the world is not the European view. And, I always say to people, if you want to look at a situation like that, look at what Iran thinks. It's rather like looking at Russia. They don't have the same map as us, a transverse Mercator projection. They have a polar projection which sees them in the middle and surrounded. Well, Iran is a bit the same in that regard. It's got, or it believes it has, friends in Iraq and some of the Gulf states.
And Russia.
And
they
Russia.
Used to, anyway, yeah.
But it also has occasional skirmishes with both Afghanistan and Pakistan. These things don't get reported. I mean, if you read into the detail of some of these events, whereas in Britain we tend to be very focused on social matters in our news. In many places, and I thank you, Petrie, for giving me the opportunity to talk about this occasionally, is there are bigger things going on in the world than whether or not Primrose Hill in London should be closed for New Year's Eve or not.
Okay.
There are things happening. I mean,
we've never been so unstable. I think, and nobody talks about that enough. It's like, no, I don't want to talk about that. And you go, well, you kind of have to, mate, because we're going to have to make decisions very soon about when you've got Iran declaring that it's already at war, rearming, President Trump again giving Netanyahu the gift of saying, well, if they rearm, we'll just bomb them to smithereens. I mean, these things will impact us.
Well, they do. I mean, and the other thing I would draw people's attention to is China. And the way in which China is hoovering up the world's resources, not just minerals in Africa and Asia, but also in South American waters, the fish, the krill that whales feed on, the squid, and looking at what it's doing around the Galapagos Islands, which people do not have enough resource now to be able to head off the Chinese fishing boats, which are they're semi-military, and often they're escorted, they're huge fleets. I'm delighted to say that people like Argentina and Peru in South America are doing a lot about this. Japan is being particularly belligerent, as the Chinese would see it, and quite sensible in my view, in stopping Chinese fishing boats and stopping this continual view that China has, that it is somehow entitled to all the world's resources.
But also we've got to remember as well that China is incredibly crafty and has been for many years in making us believe that she's our friend by getting countries into debt, by offering them money and loans, and then demanding those resources in terms of repayment. But we see this as them being generous and kind, and let's give this. We're going to give you a loan to rebuild, but then you're in debt to a dictator.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and China is very careful about how it does its relations. I mean,
very clever, actually.
I think clever. I mean, they've got a rapprochement with India.
Yeah.
They're working with Russia. You can see a sort of axis developing. Our government has given away Diego Garcia and the British Indian Ocean territories. China's going to hoover those up. Mauritius owes it. It's like having the ridiculously large embassy in London. All of these things are just bizarre. And I'd like to know what the Prime Minister's brief has been on China, because I'm really sure it wouldn't be the same as the one I would give him.
No, absolutely not. And it seems that we're just so I don't know whether it's in awe or I don't know, to President Trump, bowing down to him and to China. It's like we've got to grow up. Like I said before, we've got to actually get a grip of what these people are intentionally doing to us, and we've got to stand up to them and not just kowtow to them. We
have, and we've got this great opportunity because humans love sort of dates and anniversaries. It's a new year.
Yeah.
Okay, so in our new year, let's see some really sensible stuff. Let's see Europe continuing to help Ukraine, but really putting its back to the wheel, including the United Kingdom, which has taken its eye off the Ukraine ball in so many ways. Let's see pressure put on China to stop its rampaging around the world's resources. Let's see America reasoned with. You have to still talk to all of these countries. You can't just say, we're not going to talk to Iran because it's gone bonkers, or we won't talk to Trump because we don't understand his view on history. You still got to go and talk to them. But let's get some robust talk to them and not sort of going, oh, well, we're a bit worried about dealing with America because they might not give us the spares for the
Absolutely, that's what I mean. It's sort of, we're so wishy-washy. Paul, there's just some breaking news here, which I'm going to throw at you because I know you're brilliant. Finnish police say they're investigating an aggravated disruption of telecommunications. They've seized a vessel suspected of damaging an undersea cable. The ship had departed from Russia and was en route to Israel when Finnish authorities detained the vessel. This is also what we've been waiting for from Russia, haven't we? This sort of grey war.
Yeah, the grey zone. Russia is very good at disrupting cables and communications. Russia sees itself at war. This is part of what Russia thinks is its situation. Now it has to do. It has to defend itself as it sees it, and the Baltic is particularly strong. I mean, Russia said that part of Finland really belongs to Russia. Well, in fact, all of Finland once was occupied by Russia. They're the Baltic nations as well. And we've seen the the Russians operating off the west coast of Ireland, both submarines and surface ships around cables. The Icelanders have found the same, so has Norway. We don't have a Royal Navy that's as big as it used to be. I mean, we've very few ships at sea. Last month we had no attack submarines at sea. These are serious issues that we have to address in Britain.
But what are we likely to do with this, Paul? I mean, if Russia has damaged an undersea cable, which we believe is only a matter of time anyway, because that's what they're aiming to do. They've definitely been mapping them anyway. What kind of declaration of war is that? Is it? Does that mean we have to respond? How do we respond to this?
Well, the Russians are really good at taking us right up to the limits of these things. The drones in Western Europe disrupting air travel. These are all things that they're testing. They're doing reconnaissance. Russia is in a state of war. It has a war economy. They've called up last month 43,000 reservists. It has made no difference whatsoever to the battlefront in Ukraine. Russia is attacking civilian targets in Kyiv and Kharkiv, and nobody really seems to worry about it. I don't hear huge protests anywhere. And the main news media in Britain just says it happened and doesn't somehow do the analysis of it as to what this actually means for the rest of us. And 2026 could be the year when we see drones over London.
Absolutely.
We've seen them over Belgium, and we've sent our own forces to help the Belgians, because we do have an anti-drone capability, for example, in the Royal Air Force Regiment. But we've got to take this really seriously.
Well, I always will, Paul. So we will always analyse it together.
You and I will be chatting about this in the new year. I have no doubt.
Sadly, well, I love chatting to you, but you know what I mean. Tragically, I don't think that the dial is going to shift in our favour anytime soon. Paul, have a wonderful new year, and I do look forward to chatting to you in 2026.
Thank you so much.
Take care, Paul. Quick break, back in a second.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie, and a little bit later because of that breaking news with the undersea cables and the seizing of a Russian vessel that seems like it may have had something to do with it. We are now turning our attention to things in space, and to do that there's only one person to talk to really, in my world anyway, and that is Andy Lowndes. Season's greetings, lovely Andy, how are you?
Season's greetings to you and everybody at Talk. I'm very well, thank you. Are you?
Good, yeah, I'm good actually. I'm starting getting to grips with bin day and things like that, which is the most important thing. I wanted to talk
What's a bin day?
Yeah, I know. Well, I left this morning thinking, oh, it won't be, and then everybody else had got their bins out, so I had to rush back in and drag out all the cardboard boxes. But anyway, let's talk about space, because I find this, I love this sort of stuff. A Cardiff company has sent a microwave-sized factory into space to test to see if they can build chips in space and fire up a furnace. And they have managed to.
Yes, they have. It's fantastic. It's microwave size, small furnace. And the idea is it's an independent satellite in its own right, so it hasn't been sent to the space station or anything like that. So it's an independent orbiting spacecraft, very small, as you said, but solar powered. And the idea was, could you actually do processing on it using a sort of a foundry process, as we used to call it down here, and that means getting high temperatures. And they've actually powered it up to 1,000 degrees, so they've had plasma at 1,000 degrees, which meant you can actually start manufacturing with things like that. And the idea is they're going to do it for small processes, and the beauty of doing this in space, because people are saying, well, to make it on the Earth, is that once you put it into space, you have a weightless environment. And that means all the atoms line up beautifully on anything. And when they line up perfectly, you get more purer materials, and that's what you're trying to go for manufacturing in space, purer materials.
And in the vacuum, there's nothing to interfere with that. There's no dust or anything like that. So, all the atoms, like you said, I read this earlier, because they're scattered about normally, but they all line up in a uniform fashion in space. Do we know why? I mean, is that just gravity?
Because gravity is causing the problem.
Right.
Gravity affects everything, and that's it. And when you're traveling at 17,500 miles per hour in Earth orbit, you're counteracting that attempt to pull you down to Earth. So therefore, you're essentially weightless. Gravity is still there, but you're essentially weightless. You're sort of balancing everything up. And when you have that environment, it's perfect. This is why on this space station, International Space Station, we're trying to develop purer drugs, because you could do purer drugs that way as well, which would be great, and bring those down, or growing tissues, replacement human tissues.
Wow.
This is what's spectacular about this. It's a small British company. It's a company in Wales, which is really brilliant. They were the first company in Britain to be licensed by Britain to do manufacturing in space. Think about that. That's an interesting twist for us.
It really is.
Also, they've been able to do it as an independent spacecraft flying in orbit. That's actually quite important, because there have been furnaces on Russian space stations, on the International Space Station, and indeed on the Chinese space station. They've been having micro furnaces to actually start producing materials there. But this is the first time this is done independently. And if this works very well, and it looks like it is working very well, they're going to be testing a heat shield in a few months' time to bring manufactured components back down to the Earth. And if these semiconductors work, because this is the whole manufacturing process for the semiconductors, then you'll have purer semiconductors, which will be useful in all sorts of technologies. Communications particularly, I think, is what they're looking for 5G networks. But it could be useful for navigation systems and even general computers and things like that themselves. So we'd have purer, more efficient pieces of a kit to actually operate. And this is only the thin end of the wedge. I think they're doing brilliantly work. And again, it's one of these great things where a British company is doing it, and nobody's out there screaming about it, which they should be, because it is a brilliant piece of work.
It's incredible. A stupid question, right? You know, I like to ask you dumb, idiotic questions. Well, I think they're dumb and idiotic.
I know, they're probably not.
How does a furnace burn without oxygen?
Oxygen. Oh no, oxygen. No, it's an enclosed unit. This is why I say it's microwave size. So it's an enclosed unit, which is actually going to do this. And the idea is to get temperature very high on gases. And those.
So it's not a furnace as we would know it with.
It is and it isn't. You see, on Earth, you see, we do things slightly differently on Earth, but you can actually have a furnace in these sort of environments quite happily, because what you're looking for is heating gas up at a high temperature. What you think of burning is flames. That's a different issue altogether. This is
that needs oxygen.
And that needs a lot of oxygen to actually do that. So here they're heating up gases. Now, for instance, another type of furnace which they're going to be putting on the moon, which is going to be important, will be the gases will be heated up by solar energy, called solar furnaces. And we've used solar furnaces on Earth, for instance, huge reflectors. I mean, the Greeks used them to fire heat at ships and set fire to their sails, for instance, a couple of millennia ago. But we can actually use that on the moon, and because it's actually unrestricted, because you can get heat coming straight powering down onto the moon, you could have huge processing plants on the moon to manufacture materials using lunar soil and things like that. And of course, any dissipated waste isn't a problem because it dissipates back into space, so that is easy. So this is the thin end of the wedge. You're going to do this manufacturing here in Earth orbit, in low Earth orbit, but eventually what you're going to do is you have manufacturing plants on the moon, and at some point, it's going to sound strange, it actually might be cheaper to manufacture materials on the moon, and they'll be purer, and then send them back to the Earth. Now, your last speaker, but your brilliant guest, your brilliant last guest, put some very important points there about China getting Earth's resources. This is why China are very big at going into space.
Yeah.
All about grabbing those resources, and that's what they're trying to do in space as well. So there's a race going on, and everyone saw it's great exploration race. The real race is an economic race for resources on the moon.
Yeah, and claiming ownership of the moon.
Absolutely. So here, this Cardiff-based company is really ahead of the curve here. There's an American subsidiary, American partnership going on in the United States as well, which you really need on these high-level technologies. You need a partner somewhere, and the United States is probably the best one to go with. The alternative is go to China, of course, but we all know where that would end up going. We'd end up losing it. So that is brilliant. So we could end up with the most efficient semiconductors on the planet. I think they've stated in their press release 4,000 times purer. And this will be absolutely fantastic for our technology down here on Earth. And we could suddenly see a leap in our technologies down here. And as I said, once we start with this one style, then people are going, oh, wait a minute, this is cost effective. And when the private companies start setting up their private space station modules, one of those modules could actually be a manufacturing facility where they start manufacturing materials.
I mean, it is breathtaking, isn't it? But I mean, presumably these won't be manned by human beings. These won't be manned.
No, it's just an automatic system.
It's
That's what makes
totally
it more
automatic
fantastic.
system.
Yes. This is a small satellite.
Wow.
Their test satellite was only what's called a CubeSat, which is about the size of a loaf of bread.
So it can build a semiconductor all by itself.
They can, but well, they process the materials for the semiconductors. That's the point, and that's what you actually need to do, and that's why you need to process that in a furnace. And the trick is, how do we do this more efficiently? How can we do this purely? Oh, let's stick it in orbit. Can we make a micro oven sized furnace? And the answer is, well, yes, we can. We can fly it into orbit, we can operate it from the ground, and then the next trick would be to bring your materials back.
To bring the materials back, yeah.
Yeah, and they're testing the heat shield out, it's thought later this year, I think is what they've said on their press release, which should be quite fantastic. I mean, that'll be just breathtaking, because then you'll have a complete process going. And these vehicles, of course, are in low Earth orbit. They can bring them back then when they're finished, burn up in the atmosphere, launch another one. And once you've got a manufacturing process going, the cost actually falls, and it'd be cheaper, therefore, at some point to manufacture in space than it will be down here on Earth.
Wow, we're all going to be out of work. It's fine. It's fine.
We'll find other work to do.
Yeah, we'll find other stuff to do.
Other work to do.
It's so good to talk to you. I was going to talk to you about AI, but we've run out of time, so we'll have to do that in the new year.
Yes, we shall. Have a good new year anyway.
And you have a wonderful time, and send my love as well.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Andy Lowndes there, a tech and a space expert. We're going to have a quick break, and then it's over to you.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you until 4 o'clock. And just a reminder of what's coming up at the top of the hour. Kevin Schofield will be joining us to talk through his stories of the year, and there are so many to choose from. I can't even remember a lot of it because the news cycle was just relentless, wasn't it? So Kevin is going to be joining us to tell us about his picks for the year, and he's actually picked my big story of the year, which I'm surprised nobody else did, but there you go. We'll also then be turning our attention to Johnny Hearn and looking at the best movies of 25 and what to watch now. Well, not right now, because hopefully you're with me. What I love about doing a phone-in, and which I always have loved, by the way, is just the connection that we have with each other, and the randomness of some of the messages that you send me just make me smile. They're just wonderful. Benjamin has said, nothing to do with anything to do with the show, which I love. He said, Petrie, have you heard or seen a quokka? Heard of or seen a quokka? They're native to Australia and will brighten your day by just seeing one. And he sent me a picture, 2 pictures actually, of, I want one. Can I have one? They're probably vicious, aren't they, if they come from Australia? They'll probably rip your face off. But the cutest, stupidest looking animal I've ever seen, a quokka. I love it. I love him. Oh, well, I don't know if it's a him or a her. But anyway, absolutely gorgeous. If you have, they get up to 10 pounds in weight. That's quite big, isn't it? Yeah, maybe not. But like I said, if it comes from Australia, it's bound to be something going on there. And the other photograph I was sent as well, just apropos of absolutely nothing, which I love, by the way, so please keep sending me them. They've got nothing to do with the programme. Angie said, I've just been to Tesco and they have Easter eggs on the shelf. That's rude. At least wait until January. No, well, maybe even longer than that. Easter eggs. They'll have gone off by Easter. Don't fall for it. Don't do it. If you've bought an Easter egg, Angie, I'll be cross. I'll be having words with you. And Gary said, just wanted to wish you a very happy new year when it arrives. Thank you, Gary. Gary's absolutely lovely. He's like my additional producer. If I mention something, he'll go and look it up for me and send it to me. He's very good. He's very good at his job. Right, back to you as well, and loads of calls on the issue that we've been talking about, and that is about housing and this idea now that the government will give councils money to build council homes so that asylum seekers can be housed in those new council properties. It will save us money from the hotel bill, which has tripled to about 15 billion a year now to house asylum seekers. But should we be putting them in newly built or newly refurbished council properties when there are plenty of people, millions, 1.3 million people waiting on council house lists, sometimes for over a decade? Paul has called from Manchester on this topic. Hello, Paul.
Good afternoon, Petrie.
Good afternoon. What do you think of this as an idea?
I think we have the space to build. 8.7% of the land is populated, leaving 91.73%.
You're absolutely right.
For farming.
You're absolutely right. And in fact, if you take out people's back gardens, only 3% of the country's built on.
However, we have the space, but we haven't got the finance. We're 2.9 trillion pounds in debt, which is 96% of the GDP. And you've got to take into account, Petrie, that these migrants that may be getting these houses, if they're going to be built, I don't think it'll happen personally. The electric bills, the poll tax, they'll need hospitals, they'll need the police, they'll need the bins emptying. Who's going to pay for that? Obviously, the poor working class person again.
Yeah, and somebody else did point out to me as well earlier on that with council homes, of course, people pay rent. So that is an income for councils. But if you've got an asylum seeker in there, they won't be paying the rent. Will we be paying the rent, or will there be no rent paid? That's the other question. So it won't be free.
Where I live, Petrie, the local council pay £475 housing benefit, and I have to pay the rest with my benefits. But some of the flats that I live in, you can see that the housing migrants, because they don't have curtains up, they have sheets up for curtains. And instead of taking the bins downstairs,
so these are
the windows.
These are neighbours of yours.
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
but they're not having to pay what you have to pay to live next door to them.
I don't know what they're paying, Petrie, but
well, they won't be paying. They can't get jobs and they can't get benefits. Well, so they won't be paying anything unless they're been accepted, and then they can get benefits.
Yeah. It's really disgusting.
It's not fair. I mean, I think that is the thing. We were talking about what Britishness is yesterday, and I think that actually, yesterday or the day before, I think that one of the things that marks us out as being British is the sense of fairness. And that doesn't feel fair, right? It's not fair.
There's a difference between being fair and being soft.
Yeah.
And I think we're too soft.
And you could do with a council property, right? If you'd hope you would be up for a council property, which would cost you less than the private rented place you're in now.
Of course it would, yeah. Yeah, it would, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't feel fair. I'm with you, Paul. I think that it's unlikely. I think the backlash will be so massive, to be fair, that I don't think it'll happen.
I don't think it'll happen. I really don't. But the government are coming up with stupid schemes. I just can't wait till reform get in.
It's almost like they're trying to hack us off, isn't it?
Well, on a positive, Petrie, let them build the houses, then when the reform get in and send all the migrants back, there'll be empty houses for our homeless people.
Maybe. But like I said earlier, there's a legal requirement for us to house and look after these asylum seekers. But oddly, there isn't a legal requirement to house and look after British people.
No, of course I heard that.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends went to Holland in the 90s and they just stayed in squats. And if you had proved to the Dutch authorities that you could look after the property, i.e. by having a bed or a cooker, you could stay in that squat. I don't know, the world's just gone mad.
Listen, I agree, Paul, but I think that sense of fairness is a really, really important one for us. Paul, thank you very much indeed for that. Right, there's got a voice note here from Sharon, who's in Yorkshire on the same topic. Let's have a listen to Sharon now.
Hi, Petrie. Where does it say that we've got to give people a house? And they come from France, they come from a tent, they're in the ECHR. Why? Where does it say that we've got to supply them with a house, a car, all the things that they're getting in this country? We're signed up to the same thing as what France is, but yet they're not doing what we're doing. So it's out of choice. It's not out of necessity and what the government or the laws say. We're just going over and above what they should be getting. Why? Why are we doing that? I just can't think why we would do it when nobody else does that. That's the reason they're coming to England. That's the reason they want to be here, because they get everything. And it's not about the ECHR. Good show.
Oh, bless you. Thank you, Sharon. Well, the answer to that is that we are all bound by the same international law, right? We are all bound by the law that states that if somebody seeks asylum or refuge in your country, you have to look after them. You have to feed them, give them basic requirements, a roof over their heads, medical treatment, and food, right? The basics. That we are all nations are in the Western world are bound by the same international laws. How you choose to do that is up to the individual countries. So if this country chooses to build council houses and give them to asylum seekers, that is within the bounds of that international law. If other countries choose to house them in metal boxes and places like that, or barracks, then that is their version of that law. So we are all bound, Sharon, by the same laws. It's just dependent on how we do that. And at the moment, this government is saying, look, the bill for hotels is £15 billion. A lot of that is going into the private pockets of these companies and buying them yachts and big houses in the countryside. So what we're going to do is not give money to those private companies and instead give it to the councils. They can build a house and we can put asylum seekers there. So it's not that we're giving, we are giving more, but that is our version of following international law, which doesn't, I agree, really make us very happy about it all, because it seems so desperately unfair. And it is unfair. I mean, there's no other way of putting it. Angie has just got back to me, bless your heart, and she said, I didn't buy an egg. I didn't. Good girl. They were right next to the reduced Christmas items, though. Oh, you buying Christmas stuff for next year? I know people who do that. They go and buy the Christmas wrapping paper now for next year. It's way too organised for my liking, way too organised. But Angie, I'm very, very pleased to know that you didn't buy an egg, because otherwise we'd fall out. Stay where you are. Kevin Schofield's next.
Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa. And many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the channel crossing as the dangerous bit, but actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many, many tens of kilometres have to be covered on foot by these migrants, and as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good afternoon to you. It is Talk and it is Petrie. Just before we speak to Kevin, I just want to address a couple of messages that I've got about the law. Hi Petrie, this is from Sunny in Reading. You're supposed to claim asylum in the first safe country, as far as I'm aware. France is not at war. And how many other safe countries did these migrants come through? Yes, you're right, they're supposed to, but there is no legal requirement for them to do that. And I'm not saying what's right or wrong here. I'm just telling you what the basis is, right? So there is no legal requirement for you to claim asylum in the first safe country. Bound by what international law? Enforced by which global court? I think you mean agreement, not law, and on that basis we can ignore your understanding of your international law. It's not my international law. We are signed up to agreements around the world that we have to do these things, and that's what we're supposed to do as a Western country. Here we go. Why do we have this responsibility to put invaders up in hotels? No other country does it. It's deliberate, and we can all see. They do have to do it by the same international treaties. But how we choose to do it is a different thing. And then what nonsense are you spouting? Legal to look after illegal immigrants. Rubbish. It's our right to refuse entry. No, it isn't. And send them back to where they come from. Fact. No, it isn't. It is our right to return them to a safe nation. It is not our right just to kick them out of the country. And can I just point out as well, just in terms of the law, they are not illegal migrants when they first land on British soil. They can only claim asylum on British soil. So they're not considered illegal until their case has been looked at and their case has been refused. Then they become illegal migrants. So I'm not saying whether any of this is right or wrong. I'm just telling you, you said fact. It's not a fact. We can return people once their asylum claim has been rejected to a safe country. We still can't, even if they've been rejected, we couldn't send a woman back to Afghanistan, for example, although that's exactly what Nigel Farage has suggested that he would do if reform were to become the government. So I'm just telling you the way it stands at the moment. We are legally required to house and feed these people. That having been said, let's move on. And let's talk now to Kevin Schofield, political editor at the Huffington Post UK. Hello, Kevin Schofield. Season's greetings.
Hello there, Petrie. How are you? Happy Hogmanay?
Oh, yeah, of course. It's Hogmanay for you, isn't it?
Don't ask me what it means.
Will you be? Was it the first knock on the door? I used to be thrown out on a first foot. Yeah, because I had.
Well, yeah, I mean that's more. I think I'd probably get arrested if I tried to do it in London, but in Scotland,
chuck a kid out.
It's a tradition that once you've seen in the bells, which is midnight striking, you then go out and you go into other people's houses and then you first foot them. So you're the first person, the first foot in their door, basically.
I used to be chucked out as a kid, and I was the first foot.
Yeah, well, that's it, and it's supposed to be. To be properly traditional, it's supposed to be a tall, handsome stranger. So. Well,
yeah, no, that wasn't me.
I fall down.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't tall or handsome or a stranger, so I don't know why my mother just chucked me out in the cold. Maybe she just wanted me out there. Let's have a look at this year, Kevin. I mean, what a year! I've been saying that it's been relentless for news, and the simple task of saying pick your biggest stories must have been a bit of a headache actually, because there were so many to choose from.
Just in politics alone, there's been so many. It's just been we think each year can't possibly top the year before in politics, and it's been like that probably since Brexit, probably since 2016, maybe even 2014 with the Scottish referendum actually, and yet it does. Every year seems to be even crazier than the one before, and I think 2026, to be honest, is shaping up to be just as mad. But yeah, you're right. Picking
it's
just a
hard,
few from 2025 has been very difficult.
But you have chosen the one that when anybody says to me, "What is your biggest story of the year?" and I have to say that amongst all the crazy, this was the one that made my jaw drop and stay dropped. It's your first pick.
Yeah, Trump attacking Volodymyr Zelensky in the Oval Office in February. That was it was you're right, a jaw-dropping moment where you were used to seeing these sort of relaxed question and answer sessions in the Oval Office. Every time a international leader comes, they don't really have a formal press conference, at least initially. They have this fireside chat and the place is filled full of journalists and they just get to fire questions. Now, normally with a normal president, it would just be very nice and friendly and diplomatic, and this was anything but. This was obviously the first time that Volodymyr Zelensky had been to the White House since Donald Trump became president, and it exceeded all expectations.
I mean, it was extraordinary, wasn't it, to see the J.D. Vance saying, "Oh, you've never said sorry," which is not true, and then this idiot boyfriend of I think it was Taylor Greene, wasn't it? Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying, "Why aren't you wearing a suit?" You know, I mean, it was it was absolutely horrible.
Yeah, it was painful to watch, actually. You kind of felt a great deal of sympathy for Zelensky. And I actually think he acquitted himself pretty well, considering
I would have cried.
He was being beaten up.
Yeah, he really was being bullied by them
all these. And it was just, I mean, the J.D. Vance thing, it was just like the schoolyard bully, you know. He felt brave because he was in company and he could shout nasty things at Volodymyr Zelensky because he had Donald Trump there doing the same. But I mean, if you look at it as well, like people like Marco Rubio looked incredibly uncomfortable at what was going on, and yeah, I mean, it must have taken an awful lot of effort for Zelensky not to just get up and walk out.
Oh,
you know,
gosh. I would. I mean, I don't know how he didn't. I mean, it was humiliating. It was awful. But I mean, the world sort of rounded on this, didn't they? I mean, it was universally thought to be disgusting.
Yeah, that was the best thing about it. Actually, was that it made people, even those who had been reasonably pleasant about Donald Trump, certainly not enthusiastic, but had been well-mannered about him, say, look, he's gone, this is beyond the pale here, he's crossed a line, we just cannot accept this. Even number 10, and we know that Keir Starmer bends over backwards to keep in Donald Trump's good books, even number 10 were critical of what Donald Trump et al. Did that day. The Conservatives, senior Conservatives, were also highly critical, and I think it may well have actually struck home a little bit with Donald Trump. We know that he doesn't really listen to what other people say about him, but subsequent meetings with Zelensky have been a lot more friendly. I wouldn't go as far as to say warm, but at least they've been friendly. They've
at least they haven't been rude, right? I mean, but a lot of people questioning why. Even this was clearly orchestrated, right? This was organised. This was scripted to be. That it was obvious that it was intended to go the way that it did, and a lot of people questioning why you would do that to a man who's been at war with his country. We know why he doesn't wear a suit. It's very well discussed. It's very well talked about. He looked smart enough. It wasn't a disrespectful thing. We all know it's because he said he won't wear a suit until his country is at peace. He wants to wear what he's wearing because that aligns with almost with a military uniform. Yeah. The question is, what was this done for? Was it to appease Putin?
Well, that was the assumption, and I think it's quite an accurate one. I mean, with the whole time that Donald Trump's been back in office has been marked by his reluctance to criticise Vladimir Putin, his repeated belief in everything that Vladimir Putin says, even up until the last day or two, where Putin claims, without any evidence whatsoever, there's no intelligence to back this up, that his house has been, or one of his residences has been targeted by Ukrainian drones. No one believes it except Donald Trump, because he was told by Vladimir Putin. So, yeah, there's no doubt at all that he would never have treated Vladimir Putin in such a way. As we know as well, when they had their summit in Anchorage, he got the full, literally, red carpet treatment, which...
And American soldiers on their knees sorting it out.
Absolutely. I mean, it was just absolutely astonishing. And when you consider that this is the guy who, almost 4 years ago ordered the illegal invasion of a neighbour, the fact that he's been feted by Donald Trump while the leader of the country that was invaded is vilified by Donald Trump, I think tells you all you need to know about Donald Trump.
Well, there's a history there, isn't there? He hates Zelensky in Ukraine, and we know why. It's all about the laptops and Biden. Right, let's have a look, move forward. That was in February. In May, this also was a huge moment, wasn't it, for Keir Starmer, when he said that the UK risked becoming an island of strangers, and the backlash to that was huge.
Oh, absolutely huge backlash. It was almost missed actually in the initial speech, because it was quite a wide-ranging speech about immigration and the need Labour's attempt to try and crack down, look tough anyway, on immigration. They know they're under an awful lot of pressure, primarily from reform over the small boats crossing the channel. So he used this speech as an opportunity to basically look tough. But it was this specific phrase about Britain at risk of becoming an island of strangers, and that had real echoes of what Enoch Powell had said.
The Rivers of Blood speech.
The infamous Rivers of Blood speech, exactly. Now, before the day was out, the criticism was intense, and the line coming out of Number 10 was basically, it was absolutely unintentional. There was no desire to echo Enoch Powell, that this had been almost slipped into the speech without Keir Starmer knowing about it. The first time he knew was when he got up to read it. I mean, just absolutely astonishing. And then within weeks, he gave an interview in which he said he now regretted the fact that he had said it. Now, what then happens is that he ends up pleasing absolutely nobody. So the people who thought, actually, you know what, this is quite refreshing to hear a Labour Prime Minister talk like that, well, they're annoyed. But also Labour MPs and ministers who were sent out to defend Keir Starmer, you know, the ones who are sent out in what we call the morning round, that they're out every day, minister is chosen and they get asked questions by all the broadcasters, and they could be asked about anything. And in the aftermath of that speech, they were asked repeatedly about the island of strangers, and they had to defend it because Number 10 had defended it, and they basically said, well, you know, this is why he said it, and in actual fact, of course, he's not trying to echo Enoch Powell, but he was trying to make a serious point. And then a few weeks later, Keir Starmer pops up and says, actually, you know what, I should never have said that. I've made me feel very uncomfortable, and I wish I hadn't done it. And all these Labour MPs and ministers who had defended him saying it, they're left hung out to dry.
Hung out to dry. I mean, this is a really good example of Keir Starmer for the last 18 months anyway. I mean, when you consider all the other things that he's regretted and ended up pleasing nobody. I mean, the winter fuel allowance, for example, done in the first 2 weeks. You and I were both flabbergasted by that when we talked about it. Like, well, what would you do that for? And then to go back, he does have this habit of alienating everybody, you know, by this flip-flopping that he does. The benefits cut back, and a lot of people in this country on this station phoning me and say, yeah, we do need to do something about the benefits bill, and then he flip-flops on that and he hacks them off, and he's, you know, nobody's happy.
No, absolutely, and it's just a litany of U-turns. I mean, even going all the way back to when he was running to be Labour leader, he made all those 10 famous pledges which made them sound like Jeremy Corbyn in a suit. And as soon as he got elected, he ditched every single one of them. And, you know, when you speak to pollsters, they'll say to you, you know, the one thing that really cuts through with the public when they're asked, what do you think of Keir Starmer, is, well, he's a U-turn. He doesn't actually believe.
He doesn't believe anything.
And if you can't believe what the Prime Minister says in a speech, then you think, well, what can you believe? You know, he might say it and you might think, well, that's not bad. But does he actually believe it? Will he next week be saying something entirely different? And it just feeds into this idea that he doesn't stand for anything, and if you stand for nothing, you end up falling for everything. And I think that has contributed to his deep unpopularity in the country.
And it has to be said as well that that's what happens when you have a bunch of kids writing your scripts for you.
Yeah.
They've got no sense of history, right? They've got no sense of who Enoch Powell even is. You've got Morgan McSweeney, or Andrew, he's 30-odd, isn't he? But you know what I mean? Younger people who really, because the big beasts of government, the people with history, the people with knowledge, they've all been pretty much got rid of by this new lot of politicians because they don't want the competition.
Well,
but they don't know anything.
No, exactly. If you are a speechwriter in Number 10, you, one, should know about the Rivers of Blood speech. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
It'd be seared in your brain if you're writing a speech for a Labour Prime Minister. Better steer clear of anything that has that's a bit too Enoch Powell-y, you know, just be on the safe side. But if you don't know about it, and if you put in a very unusual phrase, you know, island of strangers, it's not a common phrase, is it?
No, they punched the air with that. They thought that was brilliant at the time.
Absolutely. So either they didn't know about it, which is bizarre, or they did and they thought that somehow it was a good idea, which is even worse, really. It was, and you know, if that was the only bad thing that Keir Starmer had done all year, it would be bad enough. But
it really was.
he's done a lot worse. There's been many other mistakes and gaffes and controversies.
It certainly has been a real political year for us to be discussing all the way through it. Never boring though, Kev. I mean, we never run out of conversation. Kevin,
No,
let's take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you, and with me is the fabulous Kevin Schofield, political editor at the Huffington Post UK. Kevin, I have something to play for you, which we're both going to really enjoy, I think.
I'm an insomniac. I'm an insomniac. Staring at the ceiling. Waiting for my to switch on. Yes, I'm an insomniac. I'm an insomniac. And all I can hear is the sound of that clock.
Well, I certainly am now that I've heard that. I'm definitely not sleeping. That sounds like me, a bottle and a half in at karaoke. In fact, she's slightly better than me. But what was that?
You tell me. I mean, well, one thing I will say about Andrea Jenkin is that she is like an opera singer. You know, she does actually have a good. I remember weirdly in a previous life when I was working for The Sun at the time, and she was standing in the 2015 election. She stood against Ed Balls, and for the Conservatives, and I interviewed her, and that was the main story. Was this former opera singer hoping to become an MP, and we all thought she had no chance, and she ended up winning. Even the Tories thought she had no chance, and she ended up winning. Remarkably, she ended up as a minister at one stage under Boris Johnson. It was that famous occasion when she was walking into Downing Street and she was being barracked, and she gave the middle finger to people outside, which is a strange way of interacting.
Waving.
But yes, so
this was at Reform, wasn't it? She's crossed the floor.
Conference. Yes, this is the Reform Party conference, and she comes out and clearly thinks this is my moment. Probably the biggest crowd maybe that she's ever had the chance to sing to in her life, and she launches into this song. But I think
why that
she
song?
wrote it herself. She's self-penned. What I Am an Insomniac has to do with any party political conference, let alone a Reform one, I do not know. It was utterly bizarre. I'm sure everyone in the audience thought it was bizarre, but in a way it kind of summed up the pretty odd nature of the Reform conference. And, you know, in the past, we have tended to rather just sort of ignore Reform, really, because, well, certainly in the run to the last election, because we knew they weren't going to win. So they could say daft things and they could do daft things, and it didn't really matter because, well, they're never going to be the government. Well, that's different now. You know, they've been in ahead in lots of opinion polls. There were lots of crucial seats. So you've got to take them seriously. And this was the first proper shop window, I think, for the party.
Oh, it was huge for them, wasn't it? I mean, this was a proper. It was. In fact, it was more covered than the Lib Dems conference.
Yeah,
you know, it got probably the biggest coverage of any of the political conferences.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was very glitzy, as you could tell from that footage there. But for Andrea Jenkyns to come out and do that was utterly bizarre. That wasn't the only weird singing incident. At the end of the party conference, she was the one who sang the national anthem. And it was really strange as well because, I mean, she's got a decent voice. She sang the national anthem, but they had like a lineup of senior figures from the party lined up like, I mean, they look a bit like the Addams Family, if I'm perfectly honest. Rather awkwardly singing the national anthem. Some of them did, some of them didn't. It was just really cringy.
Yeah, they're going to have to, I mean...
For the next time. And the other thing, it wasn't just that crazy singing. There was also the doctor who's a vaccine skeptic who was given time on the main stage. This wasn't, you know, in a fringe meeting where some wacky things tend to be said. At all party conferences, it has to be said. This was on the main stage, the main platform, and he got up and basically said that that the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, could possibly have given the king cancer. And it was just absolutely astonishing. I mean, if that was any other party, you know, you would never let them forget it.
No.
I think it was quite an interesting insight.
It was certainly very strange, but again, I sort of equate it a lot with what's going on medically in America as well with Kennedy and you know, some of the outrageous things that he says, and I often see that the MAGA and Trump is very similar to the power that Nigel Farage has and the party has. So I sort of see that as an equivalence, really. Some good news now, though. Europe wins the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, I thought we should maybe something that's not mad. Political stories. This was actually an uplifting. It's been a largely quite a gloomy year with, you know, conflict around the world and political upheaval and disruption in this country as well. But this was a proper unifying moment. I think even Brexiteers, I think, can get behind Europe when it comes to the Ryder Cup. It's always good to beat America, not least when it takes place in the United States. And this was Trump turned up on the first day to sort of rally the troops, and they tried to make it a real kind of patriotic occasion for America. But the European team managed to pull it off. The first 2 days they were absolutely phenomenal. Looked like they had it in the bag. Just it was a matter of turning up on the final Sunday and knocking off the points that they needed. Unfortunately, that's not the way it turned out. There's a bit of a collapse by Europe, and they just about stumbled over the line in the end. But they won, and that's the most important thing.
And that's the most important thing. And there was some teasing, wasn't there, from the European team to Trump, and he seemed to take that quite well, actually. Which he's quite thin-skinned normally, but he seemed to actually just go, "Yeah, okay, fair enough, you won."
He did, no, absolutely. You're right. On the night that they won, I think it might have been Rory McIlroy got his phone out and he was filming them all. Obviously, a few glasses of champagne, and I think by that stage, and they were all singing, "Are you watching Donald Trump?" Yeah. And as you say, to be fair to him, he did take it in good part.
He did take it. Yeah.
He responded to it on Truth Social, I think it was, and they basically said, "No, enjoy your night.
You deserve it." Yeah, congratulations.
For Donald Trump, it's pretty remarkable. I'm sure the temptation to go after them must have been pretty great, but no, he took it in the spirit in which was intended, I think.
He did. And we're going to round yours off with another September story. Gosh, was it fast far away?
It was a busy month, September, yeah.
Blimey. And that is that Mandelson was sacked as the US ambassador over the Epstein links. And this is yet again, Keir Starmer, again, saying he's going to stand by his man, then saying, oh, I didn't know about this stuff, and then having to sack him anyway. Again, this shows a very weak Prime Minister. I mean, if you wanted to equate that, we've got the same now with this Egyptian dissident that Keir Starmer said, oh, congratulations, you're back, this is wonderful, and says he didn't know about the tweets that he sent. Who's telling the Prime Minister stuff? Nobody.
Well, quite. It's about judgment, isn't it? And you need your senior politicians, especially the people, who run the country, to have sound judgment, to make a decision, base it on the evidence before them and stick to it. And the Mandelson thing was bizarre. They ripped up protocols, really, to make him the US ambassador. He had no diplomatic experience whatsoever. That's normally the plum diplomatic role after a lifetime of service in the diplomatic corps. That's your reward, basically, for being a safe pair of hands. And yet they brought Mandelson in from nowhere. It would appear just because he sort of had a decent relationship with Trump, but they ignored all the baggage, and there's an awful lot of baggage with Peter Mandelson, not least the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. And this is not that came out of nowhere, Which
is where he presumably knew Trump from in the first place, right?
Well, there's a lot of it, I think. They would be, they obviously go back a fairly long way. But
they were at the same parties, let's put it that way. That's probably where he met Trump in the first place.
In the pictures of Epstein with Mandelson, they've been doing the rounds for years.
Yeah, the dressing gown one.
The dressing gown one, or there's one where they're out shopping and he's trying on a belt, and it's all very, very creepy. But I think there was just, it was the fact that all this was known and people knew that this was a potential bomb just waiting to go off, and yet Keir Starmer determined that Peter Mandelson would get this job and gave him it, and it all blew up in his face. And
Secret Services even said, they suggested that he was not the right man for the job. They told Keir Starmer, this guy is not your guy. There's too much going on that you shouldn't touch him. He's a risk. He was told that and decided it anyway.
Absolutely. And even on the day that he ended up having to resign, Keir Starmer stood up in Prime Minister's Questions and said that he supported them. So, I mean, it was just, again, it's the handling of it as much as anything. It was going to be a bad story regardless, but it was handled in the worst possible way to inflict as much political damage on Keir Starmer as possible.
Well, but it's all I've never known a government or a Prime Minister who's so talented at punching themselves in the face.
Repeatedly. Punching themselves in the face. I mean, he's only got himself to blame for all of this. Some weird masochistic streak, I think.
Well, keeping with that weird masochistic streak, I hope that I get to talk to you a lot more in 2026.
I hope so.
Kevin, you take care. Happy Hogmanay to you and your family, and thank you very much indeed for joining us. A quick break, and then we're going to look at movies that we should have seen or might want to see now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there and a good afternoon. This is Talk and it's Petrie here with you until the top of the hour, and then Duncan Barks will be here to take you through drive time. I've got loads of your messages that I really want to read and respond to, and so many phone calls as well, so we will get to that in a while. But now we've got Johnny Hearn with us, who is going to talk us through the films that we may have missed in 25 and the ones that we should be watching next year. And Johnny is a filmmaker, broadcaster and talk film reporter.
Hello.
Hello. Season's greetings.
Happy New Year.
Yep. Not yet.
Well, it is in Australia.
Oh, it is in Australia. All right. Great films you may have missed. Talk me through these.
So I'm going to kick off with A Complete Unknown, and the film came out in January. Yeah, the name of it. Not a complete unknown like me.
Yeah.
No. And The Complete Unknown, the biopic of the early days of Bob Dylan, and it starred Timothy Chalamet. Came out in January. Absolutely brilliant film. I love Bob Dylan. I think Timothy Chalamet is a fantastic actor, and he totally embodies the character of Bob Dylan. So it charts his rise from a young lad in Minnesota travelling to New York to tap into the sort of 1960s New York folk scene, where he becomes a big star on the folk circuit, and then in 1965 Dylan goes electric, and the film ends with him playing at the Newport Festival and going electric, and all the controversy that surrounds that. So it spreads over a few years.
Do you have to like Dylan's music to like it?
Well, I think it helps, but I don't think you don't have to like it, because it's more about this kind of the sort of culture as well, rather than just the songs. But the songs are the best part of it, because Timothy Chalamet, as well as Ed Norton and other people who sing in the film, actually sang live in front of audiences.
Didn't he have to learn the guitar for this, Chalamet? Yeah. And he actually learnt how to play the guitar for this role?
He learned how to play the guitar. He had singing lessons with the same guy that taught Austin Butler for the Elvis film a couple of years ago. He learned, and he performed in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. Wow. And you know, for all the concerts, 40 songs he learned and performed live.
That, I mean,
no lip syncing
you can't
or anything.
Knock that talent. We've got a clip of this, so let's have a listen or a look to A Complete Unknown. It's a 15 certificate and it runs for 2 hours and 21 minutes.
I hear Bob is playing electric.
Not on our stage, he isn't.
Oh my God, that's Bob Dylan.
They just want me singing Blowing in the Wind for the rest of my goddamn life.
You came here with nothing but a guitar. You never talk about your family, your past.
People make up their past, Sylvie. They remember what they want. They forget the rest.
I want to know which side he's on.
I'm not sure they want to hear what I want to play, Johnny.
I want to hear it.
So that's A Complete Unknown, and you can watch it now on Disney Plus and Apple TV. Apple TV have bought some really good movies, haven't they?
They've got the best.
They really have.
Absolute pick of them at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Now this movie, I remember you telling me about this and saying, and you were brilliant because you said, look, it starts, you think it's one thing, and then it switches to another thing, but you'll love both things.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this man talking about? Oh my God, I love this movie.
Yeah.
I loved this movie for that reason, actually. Because normally it's quite annoying. It's called Weapons, by the way. If you haven't seen it, you have to see it. Normally I'm quite annoyed by that shift, but this was so beautifully done. I loved it, everything about it.
So the story, it's a fictional story, though they make out that it's a true story.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a fictional story. It's set in a town in the Midwest of America, nondescript kind of place. And then at 2:17 in the morning on one non-particular night, all the kids in one class, one elementary school class, bar one, get up out of their beds at 2:17 in the morning, walk out the front doors and disappear. And the film, that's how the film starts. And the film's about how the community reacts to that. Of course, there's questions about the teacher, you know, is she involved with it? The kid that's the one that's left, is he involved with it? And the community tearing itself apart because nobody can understand what's happened to these kids. Just this one class. I mean, the worst fear for any parent, obviously, you know, see video footage of your child walking away from your doorstep and you never see them again. And it absolutely rips the the town apart. And then there's this great twist where weird things then start happening to other people as well. The more that they investigate to try and find out what happened to the children, the more weird things happen to the adults within the town, and they start doing crazy and weird things to each other and to themselves, until eventually it's all kind of worked out and we find out what's going on.
And we find out what has caused it, and it is so satisfying at the end. It's one of those movies where you go, "Ooh, that finished really, really well." Let's have a listen or a look at Weapons. It's an 18, so do be careful if you've got young people around. It's 2 hours and 8 minutes. Have a listen or a look now. It was brilliant. I absolutely loved it, and I was so grateful you didn't ruin it for me.
I wouldn't ruin it.
No, I know, but you know what I mean. If you told me any more about it, if we said any more about it now, it would spoil it for other people. But I do like this little touch here to capitalise on the themes of the movies. In cinemas in the USA did something different.
They started screenings of the film at 2:17 in the afternoon, which is the time when the kids disappear. Well, they disappear in the morning, but 2:17 is the time they disappear.
Yeah, very clever.
I was in the cinema once. I can't remember what the film was, but there was a clock in the film, and there was also a clock in the cinema, and the time was exactly the same. They timed at the start of the film, so that when you saw that shot of the clock, it was the same in the cinema.
Yeah. But this is brilliant. It is creepy, but I don't like horror. And this isn't horror.
No, it's not sort of blood and guts and gore horror. It's creepy horror.
It's wonderful. But like I said, it's an 18, so it is. Yeah, don't let kids see it. Don't let kids see it.
You can watch that on Apple TV, Amazon, Sky Store, Rakuten TV. It's all over the place.
Yeah, it's everywhere. But if you've Apple TV, like I said, that's another one that they've bought. But it is on Amazon. I think you have to pay a little bit to see it, but it is worth it. I promise you. I swear, and you know I do, like a trooper when I'm not in front of a microphone. But this film, producer Gabriella loved this.
Yes. Yeah. This is a beautiful film. It's a British film. It's a true story. It's about a Scottish guy called John Davidson, who in the 80s, as a young lad, he developed Tourette's syndrome. And that was at a time when people didn't really know what Tourette's syndrome was, and so he got a lot of abuse at school. It was a big stigma for him because he would swear at people all the time. He would say very inappropriate things. He would have physical jerks and reactions and tics. He would bump into people, knock them, things like that. And it got him into a lot of trouble. And the story is about how just a couple of people, not his parents, he was almost disowned by his family, but the mother of one of his friends sort of took him under her wing, looked after him, encouraged him, got him a job at the local sort of civic centre where he worked as a cleaner, working with a character played by Peter Mullen, and who mentored him and encouraged him to go and educate people about what Tourette's syndrome is. There's a key line, he says, you know, Tourette's is not the problem, people not knowing about Tourette's is the problem. And so that's the essence of the story. It's about how he then took this affliction that he had and turned it on its head and actually went out and educated people. So
but
that
he's known, isn't he?
Yeah.
A lot of people listening now might know him from when he swore at the Queen.
Yes, when he was given an award and he did swear at the Queen. Yeah, that is in the film.
Yeah. That is in the film,
is in the film, yeah.
Is in the film. How much of this is bleeped out, this next section?
Well, it's edited a bit weirdly because there is a lot of swearing in the trailer, so I've had to edit the swearing out. So it does jump a little bit, but yeah, there's an awful lot of swearing.
Yeah, so bear with us on this because it's had to have been edited because it's against Ofcom for many of these words to go out, particularly at this time of day. But here we go. This is, I swear, it's a 15 certificate and it's 2 hours long.
If you do anything here that you can't help, you never apologise.
I don't think Tourette's is the problem. People not knowing about Tourette's is the problem. Hey. Educate them.
You always said I should help people like me. I have Tourette's syndrome and it makes me tick.
That young man over there would not harm a fly, and he makes a damn fine cup of tea.
And that also can be seen on Apple TV. They've spent some money.
They have, but this is a good film. What I love about it is so funny, but you're allowed to laugh at it, because very early in the film he says that he laughs at himself sometimes, because he says things that even he doesn't realise, you know, what he's saying sometimes. So that gives you, as an audience member, permission to laugh.
Yeah.
And then it does become very funny, but then of course that humour then counterpoints the tragedy of it as well, so it's very, very emotional. It's just an absolutely beautiful film. This will do really well at the BAFTAs. I suspect Robert Aramayo, who plays the lead guy, is going to get a bunch of awards for this, because he's so good in this film.
And does he have Tourette's himself?
No, he doesn't. As far as I know, he doesn't have Tourette's. He's not even Scottish. He's an English actor. He's absolutely superb in this.
Brilliant.
Maxine Peter Mullen as well, making up the cast. I loved this film so much.
Now, this is one that I have been meaning to watch, and I have forgotten to watch it. And it's called
The entire point of this section.
I know, I've forgotten to watch it. Last Breath.
Yeah.
It's a 12A, and it's another true story.
Yeah, this is a true story about a guy called Chris Lemons, who is a deep-sea immersive diver. So they're the people who spend a long period of time under compressed chamber conditions. So even when they're out of the water, they're still in these chambers for days on end. Anyway, it's the deep-sea diving, and they're at the bottom of the sea up in the North Sea somewhere, and there's an accident, an explosion underwater, and he's cut off. His umbilical cord that gives him his oxygen is cut off from the support vessel, and he's trapped at the bottom of the ocean with his oxygen running out, and there's no way to get to him. And the story is about how the rest of the divers on that team, led by a character played by Woody Harrelson, work out a way to get to him. But, and here's the killer thing, when you're watching it, you think, oh, okay, yeah, a couple of minutes, it'll be all right. No, 40 minutes this guy was at the bottom of the ocean without taking a breath. He was unconscious, 40 minutes. And it was only this unique combination of the nitrogen in his blood, the cold temperature where he was, that
slowed down his breathing.
Actually kept him alive. I'm not spoiling anything like that because it's all in the trailer, but it's just an absolutely incredible true story. And the way this guy survived is an absolute miracle, and it's a brilliantly made film as well.
Right, well, let's have a look or listen now to Last Breath.
Where's our power?
Dead in the water. We're drifting out of control.
How much gas does he have left? Not enough.
We're gonna be too late. It's a body recovery now.
No, it's not. I'm not losing a diver today.
Duncan! Dave! I can't see you!
I mean, just that attitude of not giving up on somebody, right?
Yes.
You know, just saying, no, he's not dead, we're gonna go after him. So that's also streaming on Apple TV and Prime, and...
By the way, I don't work for Apple TV. They just happen to have picked...
They just happen to have bought all the
four films that I really
best
like.
films. Yeah, I mean, good on them. Right, just quickly, we've got to go through films to look forward to. Marty Supreme?
Yeah, Marty Supreme, that comes out tomorrow in cinemas. Stars Timothée Chalamet. Now, you were talking about him learning the guitar and singing for the Bob Dylan film, A Complete Unknown. For this, he plays a table tennis champion. He practiced for years to play table tennis so that he could play in this film, this particular film, to the extent that he took a table tennis table with him when he was filming other films like Dune and A Complete Unknown and Wonka. He had a table
SWAT, isn't he?
He had a table tennis table with him so he could practice, so that he could play, you know, table tennis within this film. So, you know, that's the kind of dedication. I think these guys are genius. So, yeah, it's a story about an American guy who became this table tennis champion, and it comes out tomorrow.
And apparently it's in some cinemas at the moment, but the large release...
Mainly the main release.
The main release is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Hamnet. Now, I keep hearing about this. And everybody's raved about it.
Yeah, this is getting a lot of buzz. This will get a lot of sort of BAFTA and Oscar buzz, I think. So this is a film that's based on, but is not entirely true, story about William Shakespeare's only son, Hamlet. Not Hamlet, Hamnet, who died when he was a young boy.
We don't even know who William Shakespeare was, let alone what kid he had.
Well, he had a kid called Hamlet, apparently.
Oh,
right. But that child, his only son, died, and it's a film about Shakespeare and Agnes Shakespeare with him in this, not Anne Hathaway. She's probably busy doing Devil Wears Prada too. And so it's a story about the child and how they come to terms with the death of their child. I haven't seen it yet. It's out on the 9th of January. I'm really looking forward to it. It's got a massive buzz about it. Jesse Buckley,
Everybody's
Paul
talking
Mescal.
about it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this film.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but great stuff about it. Disclosure Day, which is in cinemas in June.
Yeah, this is the one that the wonderful Mrs. H is the most excited about. That comes out. It's a new Spielberg film because it's about the disclosure of alien life. Are we alone in the universe? And so I've seen the trailer for it. It's typical Spielberg, massive blockbuster. He's gone, back to his kind of roots as a, summer blockbuster movie maker. The maestro, as they call him in Hollywood. This will be one of, if not the biggest, films of the year.
No, you can't beat a Spielberg sci-fi,
yeah, absolutely.
Can you? And The Odyssey.
Oh, sorry, The Odyssey.
Oh,
that's
The Odyssey, sorry.
The Odyssey, yeah, so that's Christopher Nolan's new film. Having done Oppenheimer, you'd think he might take a step back and do something, a little kitchen sink drama.
Smaller.
Something smaller. Yeah. No, he's gone bigger. He's decided to do The Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey. He's done a version of that with Matt Damon, Tom Holland and Anne Hathaway, who's obviously not involved in the Shakespeare film. He's from what I hear about it, it's just bigger and bolder and more epic than anything he's done before.
Doesn't always make it good.
Not necessarily, but then it is Christopher Nolan, and he rarely makes a duff movie, if ever. The guy's an absolute genius.
Brilliant. Thank you, Johnny Hearn, filmmaker, broadcaster and talk film reporter. Thank you very much indeed for that. So I've got to watch Last Breath and I Swear and Weapons Again and then A Complete Unknown tonight. Which is great. That's a good idea that I'm not going out. Right, quick break. Back with you in a sec.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there and a very good afternoon to you. It's Petrie here with you until the top of the hour, and then Duncan Barks will be with you to take you through drive time. Loads and loads of messages, so I just want to read some of them out and address them. You seem like a nice lady, Petrie, but I don't think you understand how desperate we are to stop these illegals. I'm sick of seeing them creeping around outside my my 4-year-old's nursery, women being harassed. I don't go out on foot without a man now in the town I grew up in, and I've been fobbed off by my MP, and that's Rochelle. Please do not mistake me just giving you facts with me supporting those facts. I completely get why people are upset, and the numbers of people coming across on boats are ridiculous, and we all know that, and I share exactly the same concerns as you do. But I mean, I've even got a lawyer here saying that they're not, where is it? See if I can find it. Just saying, they are illegal when they enter the country without documents. This is Simon, and he says he's a criminal lawyer. Yes, Simon, you're right if they're not claiming asylum. But if you're claiming asylum, you are not considered, and you know this as a lawyer, you're not considered illegal because a lot of people haven't got documents. Again, I refer to Afghanistan. If women are trying to escape Afghanistan, many of them don't have passports anyway, right? So I know it's largely young men, I get it, but I'm just trying to point out that some people don't have the documents, which is why you can travel without documents if you are seeking asylum or refuge. If you are not seeking either of those two things, yes, indeed, it is illegal to enter a country without papers. But if you are seeking asylum and you don't have your papers, which is why a lot of them throw them away, because they might come from safe countries, right? So they know they can get in without papers. So yes, it is a criminal act if you try to enter a country without a passport under any other circumstance, but as an asylum seeker. Samantha says, Happy New Year, thank you. So good to hear you speaking sense. Do you think we need true, real places to process asylum seekers? Absolutely. I've said it for years. The only way to stop the boats or to register them or to indicate that they're illegal is to have safe, legal routes that they can, places where they can claim asylum outside of Britain. Then you can declare that anybody coming across on a boat is travelling illegally because they have other places where they can claim asylum. But while the only place they can claim asylum is on British shores, on British soil, then that is all they can do. So that isn't an illegal act in itself. Once they've been refused asylum, then they become illegal. And like I said, don't mistake that for me saying, oh, but this is great, we should have as many as we can. I don't agree with that. I think that the system is absolutely wrong. And I think it's all the governments are to blame for this, not the people who are taking advantage of our pathetic rules and our inability to set up places outside of Britain where they could claim asylum. Then we could declare that an illegal crossing. Phew. Talking about housing though, my daughter bought a house 2 years ago. Out of the 17 houses in a cul-de-sac she lives in, 4 were affordable rent and the other 13 were for sale. The 13 homes that were for sale were only 2 were sold to people who don't work. The remainder are occupied by foreign nationals, none of whom work. So who bought the homes that were for sale to rent out to the unemployed foreign nationals? This scheme of Labour government to house immigrants is already taking place over 2 years ago. You're right, Mandy, because councils have been buying up these properties at discounted rates. We hope they're discounted, but you're absolutely right. And then, there's this one says, Peter says, it's people with your mindset that exacerbates the problem. It's not my mindset. I'm not talking about a mindset. This is about what the laws are. So it's not a mindset. I'm just telling you what the rules and the laws are. That's not an opinion. That's just what it is. If they've already in France and haven't bothered to claim asylum, why should we have to claim? Again, an emotional response. That is not the rules. They don't have to, by law, claim asylum in France. They don't. They should. And then he says they should claim asylum when they land in a safe country. Yes, they should. But they don't have to by law. So it's not my mindset you're upset about. It's the facts. There's no point getting emotional about it. The rules are they don't have to. They choose to come to the UK. Should they? No, probably not. But they do. And that is the problem. There's no point being emotional and there's no point saying that facts are my mindset, because they're not. Anyway, on that note, Duncan Barks has just walked into my studio.
Petrie Hosken, how are you?
I'm very well, how are you?
Glorious to see you.
Yes, and you.
Magnificent as always.
Oh, thank you very much. I haven't seen you for ages.
I know, it's been a long, long time. I've got older, greyer, fatter.
Well,
don't speak.
So you're taking over Drive in a few moments' time. What are you doing?
Interesting bit of research has come out from YouGov, and they've done they've asked people the most important issues for them going ahead into 2026. What do you think's top? You see, if I was
asylum.
See, if I was a betting man, I would have said immigration. But it's the economy that's come out on top.
I don't believe that.
Followed by immigration, health, defence, crime, welfare, housing, then tax. So after 4, I want people to tell me their top priority for 2026, and also, was 2025 a good or bad year for Brits? Because people are a little bit split.
I think 25 was an absolutely pants year
Wasn't
for
it?
everybody.
Awful.
Awful. There was
Dreadful.
nothing good
No.
about 25
No.
whatsoever.
No.
Nothing.
No. I can't think of any upside. Can you? Should you have a moment's silence as 2025 passes away?
through. I'm trying to think of an upside. I got a puppy.
Have you?
I got a new puppy.
Oh.
That was an upside.
What's the puppy?
Puppy's called Humphrey.
Excellent name for a puppy.
Thank you.
What kind of breed? What make?
That's a very good question, Duncan Barks. Because I went to get another Shih Tzu from a Shih Tzu breeder.
Yeah.
He's not a Shih Tzu.
Right.
So I didn't know how
Great
that
name for a
happened.
dog breed.
Humphrey.
Isn't it?
Oh, a Shih Tzu. A Shih Tzu. Yeah, no, and he's very naughty.
Yeah.
Extremely naughty,
Good.
and he's turned Bailey into being naughty as well. And the
So
reason,
you have your hands full.
And the reason I bought Bailey a puppy
Yeah.
to help Bailey be younger and teach the
Yeah,
puppy, but
yeah.
the puppy's taught Bailey how to be naughty.
Or has Bailey taught the puppy how to be naughty?
Oh,
because
possibly.
I've heard tales of Bailey in the past, and he's a bit of a tinker.
Yeah, well, a lot of people try to tell. My son, particularly, says, "Mum, your rose-coloured glasses you're wearing." He was an absolute little
So do they?
Shih Tzu.